I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Generally, you said feminism is
neutral. Here's what actually happened.
The foundation of all knowledge.
I'm really mad that
what difference does it make, right? What
Stop. Stop.
The deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
And to lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong.
Yeah,
you're promoting, right?
Ideology is the main tenet of politics, right? This is my ideology.
Yeah, but...
2015, anyone go back and watch the footage? The first GOP debate.
Cool, Robert. Oh, they're dead? With a crowbar, you said?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, here bringing to you live another Moderator Monday. This evening, I have with me Whick TV, Soy Pill, Who's Crunching, Admiral Gibbs, and the Misfit Patriot, all here to discuss the question, should Americans support Palestine having their own state? Whick, if you'd like to begin with your opening statement, please.
Certainly. The region of Palestine and Israel has been under almost constant conflict since even before the foundation of Israel back in the 1940s. Okay, America does not officially recognize the state of Palestine. However, I think that it should, and I'm going to give you an argument as to why. One of the reasons why so much horror has been enabled by Hamas and other terrorist organizations is because of the quasi-stateless nature of many of the Palestinians. They are, again, uniquely susceptible to persuasion by bad actors because they lack a state of their own. And this creates a sense of desperation where they have no one really to turn to, no one really to go for. Sure, they have had quasi-representative governments, the PLO, Hamas, but these have tended to be very poor representations for the people. Now, I want to make it clear that I do not support a Palestinian state under all circumstances. I think that work needs to be done to make sure that the proper Palestinian state is one that is going to bring more peace into the region. However, I think without a state, that peace is impossible in the region. I am here to advocate tonight for a two-state solution, and I think that is the best way forward and the only way forward that leads to lasting peace, not only for the Palestinian people, but for Israelis as a whole. And this benefits Americans because peace in the region, stability in the region, again, helps our interests. We no longer have to fund Israel's defense by giving them billions of dollars to help with the Iron Dome and things like that. If peace can come into the region more than it is now, right? If we can have normalization in the region between Israel and the states around it, including a future state of Palestine, it's going to help us be able to focus our eyes on other matters and our attention on other matters. And I think that is just a moral good for the Palestinian people to have their own state. That's what I'm going to be arguing tonight, and that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Whick. And Soy, to you, please.
Yeah, I first want to apologize to any highly informed people who may watch this. I am just a layman. I've read a few books on Israel-Palestine, and I feel like I know less than I did after reading those or before reading those. There's just so much to learn. So I'm kind of coming at this, especially since it's last minute, as a layman perspective. So looking at the occupation of the Palestinian people, to my understanding, there's really no better alternative than statehood in the end. Otherwise, you have an inevitable, a never-ending, infinite occupation of a people, which will never end well. It's all you're doing is continuing to oppress, relieve them of and control their resources, and just increase violence and death ad infinitum. And it doesn't seem to make sense to me that this is the way forward. I think the only two options, if you're going to change that, are expelling them completely from their country, which means sending 2 million minus all the ones that are already dead to other countries who either don't want to accept them or can't handle that many refugees right now, and will breed resentment. And these places also have complete, lack of controls over terrorism breeding compared to American occupations, or at least American oversight. Or you give them a state and allow them to develop and pursue their democratic interests the way that everyone else does. I think when you repress people like this, they go to the only options they have, and unfortunately right now that's Hamas for them. I don't want that to be their only option, and I don't want them to have this revengeful, violent nature. I want them to have autonomy. Now, there are other states that have democracies to some extent that still do violence, of course. Lebanon has Hezbollah. Hezbollah tries to bomb Israel. Iran tries to bomb Israel. But ultimately, just because there's the opportunity for a state to do bad things does not mean that the peoples deserve a state. It doesn't mean that the peoples of Palestine deserve all the collateral damage because of whatever Hamas is doing. And if you're going to keep occupying them, or you're going to keep, ethnically cleansing them, you're just going to get more violence. And I just don't see any other path forward other than statehood. So yeah, that's my position on that. But we'll see. I'm curious.
Thank you, Soy Pill. And Admiral Gibbs, to you, sir.
All right, before I begin, I want to say all of my opinions are my own. I have been paid solely by Texas Ranch and oil money. No Crucible, no Soros, or Jew Gold has paid me. Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad to the Republic of Texas. Cheers, that. My fellow Americans, I come before you again today to once again point out the insidious nature of the Democratic Party. I've said it many, many times over the last couple of years that the Democratic Party is the true party of racism. That progressivism and democratic socialism are just intelligent rebranding by the Ku Klux Klan and the National Socialist Party. Now the perfidious Dems aren't even trying to hide this fact. We see examples of this in plain sight with Graham Planter, Richard Spencer, and counterpoints. One openly proclaims his love of socialism and communism all over Reddit and has a death head tattoo. Another openly leads one of the largest neo-Nazi groups and avidly campaigning for Kamala Harris and voting down ballot for the Dems. Finally, the last one openly proclaims he's racist while pushing for a center-left authoritarian state that embraces eugenics and advocating that Hispanics, and I directly quote what Counterpoint said to me, are subhumans. Who else is going to pick the cotton and clean the toilets? These are your modern Democrats, wishing to form a new form of slavery using illegal Hispanic voters and welfare trapping other minorities in order to ensure they stay in power. It should come as no surprise then that the Democrats hate Israel and wish to see a Palestinian state. In fact, while the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Hajin Aben al-Husani, collaborated with the Nazi Germany during World War II, many other Arab states like Iran continue to deny the Holocaust and push for the death of Israel via nuclear fire. These are states the Dems wishes to be close to. Are we seeing a pattern of National Socialism and racism yet? The honest Dems can argue for their high moral causes, but historically the Palestinians, dating back to the time before writing, never have had a state. Do we see the same moral outrage for our allies, the Kurds, who we left high and dry in Iraq from the Dem? No, we don't. Not even as they were gassed, oppressed, genocided, and sold into slavery by the various powers around them. No one has talked about the Kurds' historic claims to the region, despite suffering much more than the Palestinians ever have, when they've actually had their own country in the region historically, and their name, the Kurds and Kurdistan, stem from those former countries' name. The Dems don't care about this, though, as this is an inconvenient truth to them and distracts from their hate of the Jews. They'll sit here and proclaim Zionism is evil while propping up the nationalistic causes of terrorist organizations like Hamas and the PLO. PLO. Has anybody noticed that none of the countries of Palestine around Palestine want to take in the Palestinians? Why could that be? Could it be because during Black September they tried to overthrow the Jordanian monarchy and started a civil war in Jordan? Could it be that many terrorists trace their roots back to Palestine and terrorist acts like the Munich attack or the October 7th? How about the heinous way in which Palestinians' chosen governments perform? The PLO was notoriously corrupt and hoarded resources, ruling more like gangsters than an actual government. How about Hamas? Well, they ripped up the piping from the water plants that the Israelis built for the community in order to turn them into missiles, shamelessly using their own people as shields, and then literally sexually assaulting many of their hostages to death. We can talk about the things the average population cheers for. They came out in the streets celebrating the horrendous atrocities perpetrated on October 7th like it was the second coming of Christ. This savagery and history of evil leadership doesn't show that they deserve a state. Finally, my last and probably most controversial point is what's best for America. For better or worse, we've hitched our wagon to the success of Israel. Israel's basically destroyed one of our biggest enemies, Iran, in short order while normalizing relations with other Arab countries in the region. Israel's moved into Syria to protect the Druze and other minorities in the region from a new racist regime with Ba'athist roots. Israel, despite what many of my opponents want you to believe, is a multi-ethnic nation with Arabs and Jews of many types living in harmony. They are a beacon of democracy in the region and a staunch ally of ours. What benefit would there be for us to help those people who choose barbarism repeatedly over a staunch ally? The answer is none. In conclusion, my fellow Americans, short of America annexing the region as part of the new American empire, the best option is to forego a Palestinian state and give it all to Israel to do as they see fit. In the long term, it'll be better for everyone involved and reward those who work with the United States and its allies while disenfranchising those who work with our enemies. The Democrats, in their desperation to be relevant, don't actually care about the Palestinians, and their moralistic claims are just window dressing for the rampant hate of the Jews and their love of National Socialist policy. My fellow Americans, it is imperative that we continue to support our allies in the region and not give an inch to the demands of Palestinian statehood. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Gibbs. And finally to you, Misfit Patriot.
I usually write an opening statement. I didn't have to this time because I've already done this debate 50 fucking times. This debate is stupid. It's retarded. It's been beaten into the fucking ground, right? And here's why this debate is stupid. It's not because I've done it so many times, okay? I don't have a pre-written opening statement. I have the fucking two-state solution proposals. There have been 11. Okay, let's go with the Peel Commission, 1937. Okay, rejected by the Arab leadership. The UN Partition Plan in 1947, rejected by the Arab Higher Committee. The post-1967 war proposals, right? Rejected. Well, actually, this was basis for future talks in the 1979 Camp David Accords. Okay, PLO, Palestinian, rejected. Oslo Accords, rejected. Camp David Summit, rejected by Arafat. Taba? Who gives a fuck? Rejected. Roadmap for Peace, 2003, rejected. Annapolis Conference, 2007, rejected. Joint understanding, no details signed. Want to be very clear here. Kerry parameters talks, 2013 and 2014, neither fully accepted. Trump plan. And by the way, when I said rejected every time before that, it was only rejected by Arabs/Palestinians. So 3 strikes, you're out. 11 strikes, get fucked. Okay. Why do Palestinians deserve a state? Well, maybe prior to 1937, they would have an argument. They don't have an argument anymore because every time they have been offered one, they have said, fuck you, we'll just kill Jews instead. All right. I am so tired of having this debate about whether or not people who have been offered the thing that you say they deserve the thing they have been offered. I'm done with it. Right. Palestine has never been a state. It is not now, nor has it ever been a country. Right. So when I hear people like Soy in his opening statement say occupation, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, because Israel can't occupy Israel. Right. Palestine is a region in Israel. I am in Texas in America. Okay. So if I'm in Texas, okay, that is a state in America. America can't occupy Texas. America is Texas. Israel has offered these people their own fucking country 11 times. And 11 times There has either been a rejection on one side, the vast majority has been a rejection on one side, or the deal couldn't go through. Now, there have been 5 peace deals that have been the most notable where they have literally just said, no, we want more. So, who are the Palestinians, right? What are they? The League of Nations in 1920 got together and they said, hey, we're going to name this little area Mandatory Palestine. And for the next 28 years, these people claimed that they had a country when they didn't. Then Theodore Herzl puts together the Zionism, because the Jews got kicked out of 109 countries, not because they're Jews, not because they were the ones starting problems, because ever since the, death of Christ, they're just the world's punching bag. And I don't understand how any person can make an argument that these people who have already been persecuted during World War II, their population was basically cut in half, even more. I think it was like 60%, right? Are the problem, right? They're not. Here's the deal. Jordanians and Egyptians are what makes up Palestinians. They have 2 countries already. And if they want to either go to those countries and become what they already fucking are, great. If they want to call themselves Palestinians, just like I called myself a Texan, great. They can live in Israel. That's it.
Thank you, Misfit. And as a kind reminder to the audience, we are going to get through the debate. Then we will read and respond to your kind super chats. And then, of course, everyone's favorite part, we will open up the panel. And if you have something to add into the conversation, you're more than welcome to come join. Gentlemen, I believe everyone is dual streaming as well. So please be sure to go over, check them out, like, subscribe, and share. I leave the floor open to you.
I have a quick response to Misfit because he did address me directly. So when I say occupation, obviously, you can debate the semantics as to whether or not Palestine is independent or not. Israel says it's all Israel or whatever. The point is that you have a people in an area that are completely unable to have any sort of self-determination. They can't leave or go in with their own,
yeah, they can.
No, they can't. There's no airport, so their only way they can go in
They
or
could have
out.
built. They could have built an airport. They built tunnels. They built murder tunnels.
I don't believe Israel would allow them to build an airport in their land. I think
Israel
the point is
Israel
that
gave them billions of dollars. They could have built an airport.
What I'm trying to say is that
I'll let you finish.
Right. I'm not trying to say that they could have done this or that. I'm saying is you have a people that, first of all, is not directly one-to-one with the government. So we'll get to the negotiations that have fallen apart 11 or more times. But the idea that these people that are in this country who are living under some sort of oppression. Now, people say open air prison. Some people don't like that comparison. I'll just avoid using that for the sake of saying you are not allowed to do and live freely as many other people are in other countries because of the way Israel's occupying them. And regardless of the justification for that, what inevitably happens when you do that to a place and a bunch of people is violence and revolt. And regardless of how bad I think that is, obviously I condemn Hamas. I'll say it 100 times if you need me to. I don't think that makes it a viable option to keep doing it and just hope to God that one day these people will just stop trying to revolt, stop trying to break out of Palestine, stop trying to get self-determination. So this endless let Israel do whatever they want, I think that was kind of the prescription that Gibbs said at the end there. I just don't think that's going to work out. And really quickly to address, and I'll let you jump in, Whick, but to address the idea that we've offered them a state 11 times, I really don't think that's the case. It is. No, well, hold on. Let me say just one of these examples, and I'm not saying this disproves all of your examples, but if you look at the Oslo Accords, which fell apart after the assassination of was it the prime minister or the president? I actually forget which one they have of Israel. If you look at the actual Oslo Accords, there was kind of an explicit avoidance of mentioning Palestinian statehood. It was a deal that allowed them more autonomy, but Israel was specifically very careful not to give them a state in that one. And there's other, arguments as to whether or not, in 1947, why would they agree to give up so much of their land when really they think you deserve none of it? And you can go back and forth of hey, we offered this, and said no. Well, but the point is that just because the governments haven't been able to make a deal does not mean that they somehow don't deserve a state, or that a state shouldn't inevitably be in the long run, especially because those people don't determine whether or not that deal goes forward. They are the civilians of Palestine.
Why does anyone deserve a state? Why, I'm talking anyone, any country in the world. Why do they deserve a state?
That's not the question at hand. We're not talking about whether they deserve it or not. We're
That's
asking,
what he just
real
said.
quick-
That's what I'm saying, Whick, to be
sure.
fair.
But the overall argument, right, is whether or not Americans should support the forming of a Palestinian state. And I think these are fundamentally different
let
questions.
Gibbs jump in, and then I'll retort.
Go ahead. Gibbs.
Well, yeah, I mean, so that's interesting, because I don't see any of this outrage for the Kurds, right? And I brought that up in my opening. I mean, you might have said something about it previously, Whick, but even then, I don't see you even pushing that as a hardcore agenda point of yours. I've never seen you like make a thing, hey, let's get Kurdistan going. This is not a bash on you, but this is more of a bash on the Democratic Party as a whole. I don't see this outrage for the Kurds. The Kurds have suffered just as bad, if not worse. They actually have a claimed historic land, and I think Misfit Patriot here really hits the nail on the head when he says, why do they deserve a state? Well, I don't think any country deserves a state, right? But if you actually believe they deserve a state, then you don't believe in Erbo, because right now it should just be all of Israel, right? And you're just creating a new state where there was none and there's never been, right? So, okay, if you believe in Erbo, then you don't like the idea of a new Palestinian state. And then when we look at this finally, in another way, I'm sitting here going, well, I don't think that this benefits America. Y'all made the argument that's going to make things better over there. I think maybe, just here's me out. We've already picked our dogs in this fight, and we should back those dogs, which seem to be Saudi Arabia and Israel, and then just let the figure that shit out of their own. Because every time we go to get involved, it turns into a goddamn quagmire. And I don't think the Palestinians have any reason to like us any more than anybody else. In fact, some of the people that have attacked our ships, our embassies, and our planes have been Palestinians.
Okay, let me expound. Whick, I'm going to let you jump right in. I just want to expound on this, and I'm going to actually kick it to you. Whick, why would you say that any country, right, deserves a state when the way countries are created is pretty much one of three ways, right? Conquering, diplomacy, or purchase, right? So why does Palestine deserve a state? Please answer.
It's not about deserve. Again, the question at hand, the pertinent thing that we have to look at is, would Palestinian statehood be better or worse, not only for them, for Israel, and for us, than the conditions now? The question of deserve doesn't factor in it.
Do you think that they have shown a pattern of behavior?
Hold on.
Just to answer your question directly, no one deserves a state. What does that even mean, deserve a state, right?
Okay, well, I was responding to Soy, my bad. So Soy said they deserve a state.
Sure. Soy can make that argument. I don't know what argument.
Well, so here's my argument.
Hold on. I think
if I could just finish my point real quick. My argument tonight is that what we're doing when it comes to Israel and Palestine, what Israel is doing, what Palestine is doing, what America is doing, what the international community is doing, none of it is working. What we need is something new. And yes, there are difficulties in getting a state for Palestinians. But one of the reasons that Hamas and other terrorist organizations, Qatar and all these other extremist organizations have been able to use the Palestinians to strike at Israel is because they are in this kind of quasi-stateless like limbo where they don't have access to their own resources and government. And it creates this really where they're very susceptible to the types of predations where people like Hamas and others can use them for their.
Do you think that Britney Spears has shown a pattern of behavior as a responsible adult that should be able to take care of herself?
Look,
no, it's an honest question. Do you believe that? Do you
she's
believe that
done
Britney
some crazy
Spears,
shit? But I'm not a Britney Spears expert.
But hold on, so she was under a conservatorship, right? And everybody fought for Britney Spears to be independent, right? And Britney Spears became independent. They freed Britney Spears, right? Free Britney, and she started dancing in her fucking living room with knives and doing drugs, and she's marrying people and fucking like breaking up with them a week later, right?
Okay.
Now, hey,
unlike other celebrities,
this is not a. This is hold on.
I also dance about.
I see where you're going with it.
This is not a one-to-one comparison. What I'm saying is, right, when you have what your argument is, which is, will the world, will Israel, will everybody be better if Palestine has a state? My argument is, do you think that the people in Britney Spears' house are safer or in more danger now that she's free.
Well, wait, this is a very good analogy. In fact, I actually kind of agree with, because maybe we can find some common ground here. First of all, if you think the Palestinians right now as a stateless and letting as Israel do whatever they want entity are safer, absolutely not. They've had more deaths now than I think ever in history. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe they died a lot more in the Nakba. But when you say a conservatorship, I think you would agree. Brittany might have deserved, I don't know fully, but she probably needed a conservator, right? Like,
yes,
right. So what I think maybe Whick would agree with this is, like, when we say that Palestinians deserve a state, independence and statehood and the ability to not have someone else control your resources, not have someone else control your travel, does not mean that you don't have any sort of oversight, right? So when I think of a statehood that maybe Americans would be supporting in Palestine, which is to let them have their own autonomy, let them travel freely, but perhaps it might look like something that was post World War II Japan or Germany, where we say, hey, but you can't have a military, and we have some sort of like say over how these things are, or with the Iran deal, where we say, hey, yeah, you can have nuclear facilities, but we're going to have third-party people come in and watch. That doesn't mean they don't have a state. That doesn't mean these civilians are oppressed, but it does mean that there's some sort of oversight to make sure that they're not, foreign.
Hold on 1 second. Here's the flaw in the logic. I'm going to give it back to you, Gibbs. I don't want to hijack the whole thing.
Oh, you're good.
But the flaw in your logic is, right, Britney Spears is still Britney Spears. So what you're talking about is a transfer of conservatorship from a different person that's overseeing Britney Spears to make sure she doesn't stab her fucking kids, right? So what I'm saying is, right, have the Palestinian people, have they displayed over the past 70 years a pattern of behavior of people that can take care of themselves, make good decisions, pick their own government, right? Have they done that? No, they haven't.
Well, I think the problem there, Misfit, is that the worse it has gotten is kind of almost directly proportional to how little freedoms they do have. Like
37, 47, 68, 73. It's a pattern. It's a big pattern, dude.
But I understand that there are reasons why Palestinian peoples might oppose certain, secessions of territories and all that. But what I'm saying is, the worse that you let Israel say, hey, we're going to control every aspect of your life, I think the greater resistance you're going to see, the more kind of October 7th violence you'll see, because they have no other option. There's no, hey, let's vote on the super nice people into power that are going to negotiate a little better. There's no, hey, you know what? I don't like this government, so I'm going to go migrate to a different place. Egypt
also occupied the area, and they also had resistance back then. They had
I'm not saying no resistance will ever happen.
That's an important point. Let's look at Egypt. What's the difference between Egypt and Palestine? What's one of the major differences?
And because I would wall with razor wire.
Egypt has responded right in a way that the Palestinians haven't. It's because Egypt has a state.
Egypt has a state because Egypt is Egypt. It's been there. It's already been a state.
Egypt has a state because Egypt is Egypt. Can you?
No, Egypt is in the fucking Bible, dude. Egypt has been there. It's pre-established.
Hold on.
You're talking about establishing.
Egypt. Hold on. Let's give Gibbs. Gibbs is go ahead and let Gibbs.
I know that sounds dumb, like on the surface when you say, "Oh, Egypt has a state because it's been there," but even under Rome, it's identified as its own section, right? It's under Rome, this is Egypt. We identify it as Egypt because, it's been in existence for thousands of years. They have a national identity.
But in that
Palestine's never had that up until the 40s. Up until I think the Ottoman Empire, like 1920, they were the Levant. Whoa, let's zoom it in. They were the Levant, and we're getting into zooming. I'll fix that in a second. But they were the Levant, right, in the region, and all these people identified it that way. And so now you're sitting here going, oh, they deserve this national thing. They don't deserve that. And you're saying, oh, I didn't say that, but you're basically saying that, right? You're saying because, oh, all these things bad, but whenever it's everything Mr. Patriot said, every time they've had a chance to get their leadership, guess who got a Nobel Peace Prize? Arafat, somebody they basically kicked out of not the West Bank, but the other side, Gaza, because they go, oh, these are the PLO, too corrupt. They're too corrupt. They're basically gangsters. They kicked it out. And then what do? Instead of getting rid of the gangsters and putting some actual change there, hey, guess what they did? They elected Hamas, who's never let them have an election since then, and still enjoys, to this day, popular support, despite committing atrocities left and right and tearing up their infrastructure to make bombs and using the people's human shields. Clearly, they can't be trusted at the act for themselves.
The problem with trying to measure popular support in Palestine currently with Hamas is that if you don't support them, Hamas will kill you. So you better fucking say you support.
Well, whose fault is that? You gave them that power
to get an accurate
How many millions of people live in Palestine?
Hold on, let Whick
finish. Palestinian people actually think. And to answer your point, right? Like the Egypt of 100, 200, 300 years ago looks remarkably different than the Egypt today, and how it's governed.
But they can still
and
trace
how
their
it's-
lineage
how,
back.
how the state operates, all these things. But the fact that it does have a state means that it has, and its people see it having a future. One of the things that Palestinians are desperate for is a future. And yes, I agree. They have been governed by real bad actors
that they
for a
elected,
real long
that they
time, that have
chose.
been a danger to Israel. But the problem is you keep wanting to do the same thing and you are expecting a different result. And
They're
what I am
doing
advocating for and arguing for tonight is that we do something that's different
They're
than what we
doing
have
it.
been doing for the last 80 years.
You keep saying they're doing it. They elected Hamas,
Well,
right? They elected
Misfit, you
Yasser
gotta-
Arafat.
Well,
They
again,
did.
you got to look at this again. You have a population of millions, like you pointed out, and to say, first of all, let's say like 90% of them.
That's the answer.
90% of is 2 million, right? 90. Let's say 90% of them voted for Hamas. So first of all, like to Wick's point about whether or not they need to support them. Obviously, I agree. There is some sort of weird coercion there, where it's kind of hard to say you don't support Hamas. But let's just say they all did. It makes perfect sense for the people to turn to some sort of violent repression against the the violence that they're facing, and to say that, well, Egypt is Egypt because Egypt's always been there because of the Bible. Like Egypt in the Bible times doesn't even closely resemble Egypt now or
Hold on.
Egypt,
But it's still
20 years
hold
ago.
on,
And
sorry.
the idea that like because Palestine was only an area that they declared to be Palestine in like the Ottoman times, which I'm not even sure if that's true. They might have called it that before that. Doesn't matter as to whether or not people, when I say deserve, because you keep coming back to this, deserve a state. It's not like, oh, did you earn it? Oh, here's your brownie points for the revolution, Americans. The idea is that people always are going to want to make their own decisions. And if you don't let them and you oppress them and you keep them locked up and you don't let them control their own resources, they're going to revolt. And you need inevitably to let these people do something that doesn't make them want to violently lash back.
Here's what you're doing. You're conflating the British in the American Revolution to the people, right, that is in the current government. So as an American, let's say we Americans elected somebody for president. That person became an authoritarian dictator. In fact, a terrorist regime.
Let's say that's happening.
You don't know. You don't know shit about. You don't know shit about authoritarianism in America because it's never fucking existed. All right. If our current government moved into Mexico, slaughtered 1,200 people, and I'm using a 1-to-1 comparison, not a fucking relative, right? I'm talking about if we did what Hamas did. Okay, you're saying that those people who are oppressed should have done something because they saw that they were under this type of authoritarian rule. What if their own government, right? What if our own government did what Hamas did? Do you think that we would have a duty, a right, in fact, an obligation to overthrow our own government, not Mexico's government? Not even if we thought Mexico was being cunts, right? If we videotaped ourselves raping women, cutting people's heads off, burning old ladies, right?
Killing 1 million Iraqis, Abu Ghraib.
No.
What if we did that?
Just use a simple 1-to-1 comparison of exactly what Hamas did, right? If the American government that we elected did that and we didn't uprise, nobody should support us. We deserve nothing from the rest of the world. If we don't fight
this isn't
back.
a 1-to-1. The problem with your analogy here is it's not a 1-to-1 comparison. The fact that
it's way
we
more,
as American citizens have abilities and rights, gun ownership and things like that, that the Palestinian
I don't give a
people
fuck,
under
dude.
Hamas does not.
No, the
Again,
Palestinians outnumber.
Our ability to affect change in our government is fundamentally different under Hamas the Palestinians have, and to act as if they have this the same ability as an American would have in order to seek redress from their government is just faulty. Like, do they have a moral duty to resist their government? You could even argue that.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by the analogy, Wick, too, because he says, well, Wick,
hold on, let Wick land his plane. He's been very gentle with everyone.
Okay,
go ahead, Wick. Finish.
I can be rough. Don't worry.
He can.
Here we go. But the fundamental issue at hand is that, again, if we are to change their behavior, I don't care about what is just or deserved. I care in a very pragmatic sense about what will work and what won't work. And it's clear that your method is not working.
What do you mean? Our method hasn't been tried yet. Trump's plan is about, I don't know, 3 weeks in. But hold on, let's go back to what
and already they're still killing
hold
each other,
on.
man.
Yeah, no. Now they're killing each other. They're not killing Jews anymore. Right?
No, hold on.
Now you
Israel
have
bombing them.
Now you have the Dagmoosh or whatever the fuck it's called, right? Which is more Palestinians, other terrorist factions who are now going after Hamas because they showed weakness by capitulating and giving the hostages back. That's
right.
how
And
it
you're
works
making the argument
over
that those people should try to revolt, and they have
No,
a
what I'm making
responsibility
the argument is if that's their reaction to a peace deal, they don't deserve a fucking country. Right?
Well, hold on, Misfit. I can't see how you're not seeing that these are not the same groups of people. You're literally wait, hold on. You're literally describing the Hamas government executing people they see as collaborators with Israel or the enemy, and you're telling me that those people don't deserve self-determination. Who have I don't know if those people specifically that are being killed have done anything wrong, but are clearly not aligned with and don't support Hamas and are being killed by them. And the argument that the only thing that they should do, their moral responsibility, is to revolt against Hamas when clearly that will get them killed. And if they don't do that, they don't deserve autonomy, just doesn't really ring true to me. And it especially doesn't make sense to me when you use this America analogy, because we did go in Iraq and kill hundreds of thousands of civilians, and half the country supported it. Yeah, they did not revolt. So like, I don't.
Today we've been bombing Venezuelan fishing boats.
Fishing?
What
are they fishing for? Cocaine?
You don't know that. Give me any proof.
It's already been confirmed.
Give me 1 ounce of evidence.
I will show you a video where the
you can just Google countries around there have confirmed that they got coke out of the water from the boats they blow up. Several countries have now.
When the DO,
hold on, what do you said? Give you any proof? There's proof. Just Google that.
When they
but hold on,
hold on. Let Gibbs finish.
Let me just a bit here. I'm sitting here. One. I see this super chat showing, right? And I don't know if they're exact accurate, but I know that the region has been named a whole bunch of stuff, like Greater Judea. We've had the Levant, other different empires, and we mentioned Egypt, right? And Soybill objected saying modern Egypt's not the same as whatever. Well, let's check this out. What country is considered to have the longest continuous history in the world? Oh, China. Would you say communist China is remotely the same as, I don't know, the Qin dynasty? Fuck no, it's not remotely the same at all. So it's still the same continuous country. They still have the same national identity. Egypt, same thing. They still have a national identity. Palestine's never had an identity. And you look at the earliest ideas of Palestinian nationalism, it happens under the Ottoman Empire with rich Palestinians basically being corrupt and going, let's buy a region. That's what happened, right? That's not like any sort of actual claim to the land. Now, when we're sitting here talking about what you're talking about, Hamas, well, okay, you said there's 2 million people. I don't know if that's true. I know there's more than one. But let's just run with the 2 million number. There's the most fighters Hamas has at any given time that we've estimated. It's 43 to 48,000. Yeah, right. Okay, you can get 2 million people with the body heat and kill all of Hamas. Right? I don't want to hear they need the guns. And when you sit here and talk about the guns, let's look at Texas. I'll use that as an example. I brought it up. Goliad and the Alamo. We used way less guns to be way bigger of a force and got the job fucking done.
Wait, what happened at the Alamo?
We lost, but we killed enough of them that we could beat them at San Jacinto.
Oh, we beat them a week later.
And then, hold on, I got one more. Hold on. When you're sitting here saying these things about the guns and all this shit, it's pretty clear that they have no problem getting the guns. When he just mentioned the Dagmoosh being another group that's got guns and are fighting, and it's like, oh, okay, these guys are so bad. Well, hey, I guess they were creative. They're the rednecks of the Arab world. They took water plants and turned them into fucking missiles. Okay, cool. So it's clearly they don't have a problem figuring out a way to kill everybody. So, hey, I don't think that's the reason. I think that what you're trying to say is you don't respect the Palestinians, and you think they have a big case of Poseidon, and you need a Daddy America to come save them. And guess what? I'm saying time for Daddy America to let the people over there kill each other. That's what I'm saying, and let them do it themselves and figure it out, because it's not our fucking problem no more.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. What with we, the word "we" that Whick keeps using, we, right?
Yes, the American people.
We, right? We need to do this. Okay, we never needed to do this. Okay, what we needed to do was back up our ally by selling them weapons, which is what we did. Right, that's what we do with our ally Israel. Right, Palestine is not an ally.
Do we have a duty to keep our allies safe?
What do we have a duty to keep our allies safe? No, we do not have it.
We do not have a allies be more safe.
We do not have a duty to keep anyone safe but America.
Not even
right?
our allies.
Right.
We have
No, there is no
towards
duty.
our
There is
allies.
no.
But even
there
if we like signed an agreement that said we have to, and it's literally an obligation under.
Well,
like,
I mean, every government changes every 4 years. So if Bill Clinton says that we got to keep Ukraine safe, right, and then a new president comes in, we don't have to keep Ukraine safe, right? So it's something like that, right? Do we
That's
have
not how that works?
Can one administration create a duty for the entire country to another nation
Yes.
that lasts a long
Yeah.
time? I
that's
don't believe
how
so.
it works. Because if it
I don't
doesn't, then
believe
no country will ever work with you if they know that 4
Well,
years
then-
later you're not
then
going to
fuck
be
it
able
all
to
the time.
uphold any
Well, then
agreements.
fuck
Yeah.
that country.
And this
Yeah.
is also why traditionally we've
Hold
the
on, but when did
administration
the
haven't
United
changed our
States?
foreign policy that much. Our
Go ahead, Whick.
foreign policy leaders, experts, and such like that have tended to go through several administrations, right, in order
Sure.
to have this continuity of policy. That's generally been the case in
Okay,
American history.
but here's the deal.
Until we
Right,
need to change it.
earlier, you were talking about how the Dagmush is like, oh well, these people are clearly they're resisting, blah blah blah. Do you have any idea what happens during these regime changes or weakness that's shown in a regime when these other factions come out and start, like the Assad regime? You remember when Assad fucked off to Russia and because a bunch of other terrorists were like fucking even worse, right? This is what happens throughout history in the Middle East, right? And look, I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying that the vast majority of people in these Sharia practicing nations, in these Muslim nations, right? They don't look at things the same as you and me. They don't look at diplomacy as, hey, let's have a conversation. They look at it as, hey, let's kill everybody. And then we get to stand right there and we get to hoard the food. We get to take over the trucks. So when you see the Dagmush, right, going after Hamas because they made a peace deal that Donald Trump put together, that doesn't mean Dagmush good guy. That means Hamas 2.0 trying to make Hamas 1.0 no more Hamas, right? And then we would just be talking about the Dagmush.
Again, this is why a peace deal alone is insufficient. A peace deal has to be the start.
But hold on, Whick. You just saying, okay, all right. So you just argue we should support our allies, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just take this to its form.
Hold on. Do you disagree with that? Just to on the starting point.
I will say that.
I know
I would say
Misfit
most
kinda
of the
does,
time.
but do you?
Well, I would say most of the time, yes. I mean, there are situations where I might disagree. Okay, but like it's situational.
But as a
generally,
rule,
yeah.
as a general
as a
principle,
general rule, sure. But then that's going to lead into my next point. Is if you remember, we just talked about Iraq. There was one group in Iraq that really was happy America came to town, and that was the Kurds. And they acted as our translators. They've sat here and acted like our agents in Syria. We've backed them. But however, we left them to die whenever we pulled out. And
that is a shame on our country.
It's a shame. Hold on. Just let me hear me out. And I've sat here and you argued strategically it would be better for the region to give the Palestinians a state. Well, I disagree. I think it would make more chaos, but that's fine. Let's just take your idea for what it's worth and say that's true. Okay, I don't hear you or anybody advocating that we give the Kurds their historical land, which they actually have a claim to, while they've been just as oppressed in greater numbers than the Palestinians ever have. They've been killed in much larger numbers.
I'm not.
Wait. Gibbs. Wait, I have to ask. Well, I have to ask before you move on. No, I have to ask this.
Hold on. Let Gibbs finish, and then you can come back.
Well, he's saying something that's not true. I need to ask about it. Like, do Kurds not have their own like land in Iraq that is like they have their own airport and they have their own like
their own autonomous
kind of
land
elections? Yeah.
However, unlike that, they've had to fight tooth and nail, and they've gotten somewhat to their own extent. However, no, they still don't have full rights compared, and they've tried to break away several times, even recently. And it's not been allowed because guess why? It would destabilize the region with our other allies, Turkey, and all these other people, and even some of our enemies like Iran. And all of a sudden, we don't have a problem fucking the Kurds over, and y'all, the Dems, are totally silent about it. But hey, guess what? When it's convenient to hate Israel, y'all sure are quick to jump on the Palestinian side.
Well, hold on. The reason we're talking about Palestinians tonight is because that's the prompt. If the prompt was Kurdistan and the Kurds, we would be talking about
pick
Kurds.
the fucking prompt. So I have a fucking problem with you.
Palestinians.
And to be fair, the Democrats have criticized the pulling out and the abandoning of the Kurds for the last like 10 years. Well, not 10 years.
And then they backed Erdogan or whatever his name is in Turkey multiple times.
Erdogan, yeah.
Oh yeah.
They did back Erdogan, but again, like if you were to bring all of these facts to me and say, hey, like, do you think that not letting the Kurds have their own state is going to cause more unrest and Like, I think I have a friend actually who lives there, and she was showing me like how they're about to go to war when the Iran stuff started. Yeah, I do think that maybe giving them a state could alleviate some of the pressure and make some of the civilian sentiment not so adamantly anti everyone else who's controlling their entire lives. Yeah, if that was the case. Again, I'm not super informed about Kurdistan, but this is, I guess this is a whataboutism where it's like, yeah, I would be consistent in the same case. I would want them to have a state. I do think that would help.
Overall stance is so like you
just I'm not the Democratic Party. I'm Whick.
Hold on, but you are the representatives for him tonight. So I mean, you do have
to. Okay, well, and the conclusion to that would be obviously Admiral Gibbs, that we would say the Democrats should support a Kurdistan state. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then why don't they? So if they're not doing it now, why should
I don't know. I'm not informed about it.
For our ally, why should we take the claim seriously?
Let me hold on. Let me take this moment to just reset the panel. We were doing really awesome on the back and forth. Let's get back to that and less of the chiming in between each other's sentences. Gibbs, I'm going to kick it back to you and then take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I was just asking the last question here, like to y'all, really, like why, if you're going to say, you said y'all made the prompt that it's Palestine, right? Why would we take any claim from you, the Dems, saying, hey, we want Palestine for any real reason, seriously, whenever y'all's party openly has supported basically the oppression of the Kurds with backing the Edgerton on other sorts of shit? Trump has not done that. Trump called them out on all sorts of stuff. And so when you're sitting here going, hey, we should back Palestine, and I'm going, hey, they're not even our ally, and you're sitting here saying we should support our allies, hey, we're not going to support the Kurds, seems pretty sus, bro.
If you are under the impression, just real quick, if you are under the impression that I support every single policy or every single decision that the Democratic leadership has made in the last 20 years, you are sorely mistaken. I've criticized my party, the Democratic Party, on several occasions, right? Recently, and in perpetuity to the past when it comes to certain styles of play that the Democrats have. I find myself to be a Democrat because of the positions I hold. I do not hold the positions I held because I'm a Democrat. There's a big difference there. So when we talk about, right, this idea of Kurdistan, I'd be happy to research it. I might come to a different conclusion. But right now, I'm talking tonight about Palestine.
Okay. And wait, hold on real quick, because I did Google it, and like Chuck Schumer and other prominent Democrats have supported an independent Kurdistan, so I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Like,
hold on. Wick, did you have anything else you were finishing in that moment? Your own partner cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, only this, and I'll be very brief. Is that, again, I think that evidence points that the peace deals and all the half measures that we've taken with Palestine and Israel have not been good for Palestine. And it has not been good for Israel. It led to October 7th, after all, right? And we need a different strategy and a different way of doing things.
Okay, can I jump in now? First of all, I'm gonna just completely unrelated side note. Listen, you fucking nerds in the chat, you can shut up. Because honestly, I'm gonna find your mom. I'm gonna take her to Red Lobster. We're gonna share some cheddar biscuits, and then I'm gonna give her sweet loving. All right. Next. Okay. So Wick, what you're saying is that there's this, like, it's not working. Okay. Yes. The peace deal has been in effect for a few weeks now, a couple weeks. It's working, right? They're not killing each other, right? Now,
the ceasefire's been broken.
The ceasefire. Hold on. Let me finish, right? But has there been an active war where both sides are in the same zone since the peace deal was enacted? No, right?
There is specific criteria for whether or not they're killing each other.
Hold on. Please let him finish.
There's no Israeli officers past the yellow zone, right, in that region, killing any Hamas Palestinians, anybody, and there's no Palestinians past the yellow region killing any Israelis. That's not happening. When you say the ceasefire has been broken, you're referring to news headlines where a freaking bottle rocket came over the yellow line, and they talk about it like it's the worst thing ever.
Or but the majority, hold on. Them. I mean, but the majority,
let him finish.
They're not bombing the region that was agreed to in the peace deal. They're bombing other regions because there's a war on three fronts now. What I'm saying is the outline, the framework of phase one of the peace deal is working in the framework of the peace deal, right? This is a very complex issue, and so far it's working. Secondly, right, long term, think about this, right? You're talking about It's not working, so try something new. The something new that was just implemented by Trump, and that's probably why you hate it, hasn't been actually tested yet. And you're already saying it's not working. That's like literally saying, all right, I just put a cake in the oven and it's not done yet, so the cake is obviously not going to get made, right? Let it fucking bake, all right? Like, leave it alone for a minute and wait. Now, here's why I think the peace deal will work, because Donald Trump is not having the United States of America and Israel police this thing, right? They're having the Abrahamic Accord following partners, other regions, right? Kind of just like, negotiate this. Like they're kind of proxies. So let's say, and I know that, we can all be negative and say, oh, that's not going to happen, but let's just say it does, right? Let's say this whole thing fucking works out. Let's say the other Arab nations, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and I want to say Saudi Arabia, right? Let's say all those nations come in there and they go, look, this is going well, right? Yeah, sure, you and the Dagmoosh are kicking the shit out of each other, but whatever, right? But everything's going well. Let's start to clean up Gaza. Let's start building in Gaza. Let's actually rebuild Gaza, right? And sure, the Palestinians don't get their own country, right? But it does keep them at bay. And then let's say the Abrahamic, let's say the Abrahamic people. Hold on.
Right?
Let me say the Abrahamic people start building property in that region. Now, anytime that there's a threat to that region, it's not Israel's land, it's not Palestine's land, it's the surrounding region. So they're going to have an incentive not to do it.
Soy, I wanted to hand it back to you since you were trying to get something in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I got kind of lost in the hypothetical. The idea that the ceasefire is working because Israel's blowing up parts of Gaza, but not the parts that they weren't supposed to. I mean, they're literally saying we'll return to the ceasefire after strikes. Like, you can look up this is happening. It's like, oh, it's just headlines. It's like, that's what they're doing. They're violating the ceasefire. So if you're saying, if you're saying that it's not working or it is working, I agree. This could potentially come to a place where there is less violence in the region. Obviously, that's a possibility. My understanding of the history of this place is that no, the people whose families have just been annihilated for the past couple of years and have been occupied for more than that are not going to suddenly be like, well, I'm totally fine with this because now some other country is determining how I can and cannot live my life. I'll forget about all the atrocities that have been done to me. I think this is just going to lead to more violence, and I think one of the only ways to get out of that is to let people have the sort of self-determination that I think comes with the statehood, and I just don't see that happening under the current your Twizzlers are cracking in the mic.
I was gonna say I wanted to wait till Soy finished, but yeah.
I just don't like, again,
if you want to be taken seriously, stop using the word occupied, because I already explained to you how retarded that is.
What do you mean by it's not occupied?
Let's go with the plan. Let's go with this plan, right, that Trump has proposed, and let's say it does work. And I hope it does. Like, honestly, I would.
And it's not a hypothetical; it's just the proposed plan. I'm just telling you.
But I would give Trump all the credit in the world if he did bring priests to the region. Beautiful. I'd still not vote for him for other reasons, but I will give him kudos for that.
Fair.
However, okay, let's say it does work. Do Palestinians get a state then?
No, they don't get a state.
Do Palestinians get to vote in their Israeli elections?
No, they get to vote in their own election.
In their own election, but
it's
they don't
like
have
a state. It's like, hold on, region, right? So they get a region in Israel because they've been offered a state, like I told you in my opening, 11 fucking times, right? They don't get it at this point. No, I'm sorry, they don't.
They don't
maybe
get
down
it
the road, maybe
forever
under this,
because
under this peace plan,
corrupt government and leadership
that they voted for
agree to the deals that were offered them.
Look, here's the deal, Whick. Okay, if you are offered something over and over and over again, and you keep slapping it out of the person's hand that's offering it to you, they'll stop offering it to you.
Under your analogy, though, it isn't them specifically, because most of the people in Palestine are very, very young. A lot of these offers came to their parents, their grandparents, or their grandparents, right? They weren't the ones that had the opportunity to reject or accept them. So what you're actually doing is punishing them for the sins of their fathers.
I'm not
I
doing
find that
anything.
fundamentally immoral.
It's not saying you, it's the proverbial you. And also you still haven't addressed, because you keep coming back to this. Like this is the one I do know about. The Oslo Accords did not say that they would create a Palestinian state, like explicitly. So like I don't know why you keep saying that they do.
No.
Yeah, I think Gibbs.
Oh,
sorry, I was going to say I thought Gibbs wanted to chime in there, but
I would do want to chime in, but you could go ahead and say your thing.
I said there were the five big ones under the Oslo Accords. I said that there was no actual concessions in that one. I said they were rejected 5 times out of 11 deals, and out of 11 deals, 6 of them. Well, actually, technically 5 of them, because in that 11 is included the current one. All right, but five of them were rejected by the Arabs. 5 of them didn't come to any agreement, and 5 of them were just in talks, and the Oslo Accords are one of those. However, right, out of the 5 deals that were negotiated to the point where the only thing that had to happen was the Palestinians or the Arabs, depending on the time, was to say, yes, we will stop killing Jews, they would have had a country. And they don't have a country because they said no, dude. It's like, if you keep giving somebody this opportunity to have your own country and you go, it's not good enough, right? Well, then eventually somebody's going to go, okay, no country for you then.
Right. Again, Misfit, I understand that you're saying there's certain, like, let's take the 1947, which is like very clearly this was just a rejection of what would have been a Palestinian state. And the idea... Yeah, like the idea that, okay, so they didn't accept it for various reasons. One of them being that it's like, hey, you're giving up all this territory that was already ours. That might be a valid reason, it might not be. But then to say, well, for any reason that the government or whoever was elected at the time made a decision not to accept it, you don't deserve autonomy. You deserve to have people determine your resources and your life and whether or not you can travel, because otherwise, these people in power are never going to be happy, and maybe you won't be happy. Like, this doesn't really follow. And that's why we're saying, like, yeah, this is collective punishment of people that don't have self-determination and can't even decide whether
they do. They have self-determination in Jordan. They have self-determination in Egypt. They have self-determination in Syria. They have self-determination in all these other places that they're actually from.
The people who Syria, Jordan, and Egypt won't let in are not given self-determination by Israel.
Why they let them in? Okay, a couple questions. Okay, this is important here, right? You said you said they're mainly young.
That's true.
I will acknowledge that. What is your question, King?
Okay. No, it's not a question.
They won't be let in. Oh, they won't be let in. Why do we acknowledge they don't get let in? Yeah, I will acknowledge Egypt doesn't let them in. Yeah, and there's a reason for that, and that's what.
No, not Egypt doesn't let the Palestinians that are currently not let in to Egypt, Jordan, Syria, all these other countries do not have currently self-determination. That Israel does not let them have self-determination.
Why is that?
No, Egypt's not letting them in. Syria's not letting them in.
Doesn't let them have self-determination. I agree.
Hold on, but Whick, why? Okay, but hold on. Let's go through a couple things y'all made your claims you made. First, let's talk about they're all very young. God damn it, it's doing it again, right? Why are they all so young? Well, it's because they've all died. They've all fought and died after choosing their government, which is some evil terrorist organization. They've done it several times now, and they fought battles they knew they couldn't win. They fought with bad leadership. This doesn't bode well for their future, right? And then you sit here and you go, hey, all right, why are they sitting here going now? They don't have self-determination. Well, it's because they have ties in Egypt to the Muslim Brotherhood. And guess what? Egypt has been rounding up the Muslim Brotherhood and killing all of them. All right. So when you're sitting here going, hey, maybe Egypt doesn't want to let more Muslim Brotherhood terrorists or associated terrorists come in. Of course, they're not going to let them do that. That would be stupid of Egypt's part, right?
The reason why the Muslim Brotherhood and these other organizations can take Palestinians and make them into extremists is because Palestinians don't have a state. The stateless are very easy and susceptible to be predated upon by these organizations.
You're ignoring history. Why doesn't Jordan let him in? Because
Jordan let in millions of them.
Jordan let in millions of them. And what happened? They tried to overthrow the monarchy and created a civil war. They've done the same thing in Syria, which is what Assad was doing. He's cracked down on them. And guess what? We're seeing in Lebanon. Guess what? Right after they lost in Jordan, what did they do? They moved to Lebanon and they started another civil war there. Every single fucking time they've done this, right? And so you go, why aren't they letting them in? They don't have the right to self-determination. No, they do have the right to self-determination. self-determination. They've had their little area that they somewhat control. Whether or not they think it's properly controlled enough to their liking is a whole different question. But every time they get a chance, what do? They input a terrorist group that's got insane values or are basically gangsters in power, and then they go and kill these people. And you go, oh, well, this time it'll be different. No, it won't, because the only adults left are the leadership of these terrorists.
It won't be different unless you do it differently. It won't be differently. It won't be different unless you do it differently. And one of the things we need to do differently is to promote a state that they have, because you are correct. They are getting these corrupt quasi-governmental organizations that run them, but this is from bad actors in Qatar, I should say, Qatar, Iran, other hotbeds, right? Hotbeds of terrorist activity that are funneling in resources to promote these things. And they are susceptible to it because, in part, they are a stateless people.
Whick, do you think that the people in Venezuela and Cuba are living a good life? Do you think that they are happy people that are free people? Do you think
in Venezuela? Probably not. They're governed by Maduro, which is
correct, right?
Is the argument that people can live in a state and the state might not be good?
If you let me finish my argument, I could tell you the argument instead of you asking about the argument before I finish the argument. So the people they have self-determination because they are a state and they elected a government that is oppressing them. Okay. This is the argument I'm making. You're asking whether or not the Palestinian people, who have shown a pattern of behavior of electing bad actors as their leaders, deserve self-determination. And I'm making the comparison to Venezuela or Cuba.
Right. Misfit, do you think that Venezuelans would be more likely to support Venezuelan terrorism if instead of their own state oppressing them, or if whatever is happening is because of like who they elected, America was coming in, which we might do, and do a regime change and say, we're controlling all of your resources, we're controlling your day-to-day life, we're controlling your travel, and any and all forms of expression against that are the only like valid way they see to express opposition to that is violence against America. Yeah, that would be bad. And I would say at least let the Venezuelans, sit in their own like whatever mess they made, but don't have some other government.
False dichotomy. Look, here's.
Well, I'm making your analogy one to one. You're saying
you're not. You're changing the analogy, right? To make it something else. You're making it the situation in in some hypothetical world where Israel is intentionally oppressing a people group, right? Where they're not. They're trying to protect themselves.
Whoa. You don't think that Israel is intentionally? You can say it's justified, and there are conditions where
if Mexico was firing 5,000 fucking rockets into America, America would oppress Mexico.
Sure,
right?
But what you are arguing here is that there is justified oppression, not that there's no oppression.
Sure, I can argue that the actions of Israel are oppressive in a self-defense. Like, and look, the person who tries to beat me up that gets the shit kicked out of them will say that guy that fucking beat me up is oppressing me.
Would you starve his family to death?
That's not true, right? Like, look, the only people that are starving Palestinians are the people ruling over Palestinians, and that's not Israel.
It's not the people controlling the amount of food that goes in and out of Palestine.
Well, hold on. It's funny. It's funny you say that.
You're both going. Which one of you wants to take
absolutely
it?
Right. Misfit's absolutely right. You brought up the tunnels earlier, and Soypill just goes, well, who's starving them? Well, that's interesting. Why did Hamas get put in power? It was literally because the PLO in Gaza, or later the PLA, they decided, hey, we're going to build these tunnels. They're smuggling tunnels. They were gangsters. They hoarded the food. They rode around, acting like they were Capone. The people that were living there at the bottom level, they didn't get nothing. They were fucked. And guess what? They go, you know what? Maybe the religious terrorists are going to be better than fucking, I don't know, the Al Capone of the Middle East, right? So they put these guys in power. So they chose one evil fucker to an even more evil fucker, and they have the option to choose none of the above. Right? We've already talked about how all these little groups got guns from everywhere. They could have armed revolution and fought their way and got a nice thing. They could have pulled a Gandhi and maybe done some sit-ins and got, Israel to give them all this other stuff. The way that it's amazing that Yasser Arafat got a Peace Prize. Gandhi.
Yeah. What if they did like a march of return to like the fence and then got sniped through their kneecaps like a bunch of times?
Yeah. What if all the people there also cheered as they literally have videos of women being SA'd to death came back? What if? You're sitting here acting like there's not 6,000 1,000 years of bad blood, and it's just going to, go away peacefully with this two-state solution. It's never going to happen. They're never going to be okay living next to each other.
The reason I brought up Venezuela, the reason I brought up the Maduro regime is because I'm trying to hammer it into your fucking heads, and it never works, right? Which is why I don't want to do these debates anymore about this particular topic, because you have this cognitive dissonance about Palestine, where it's this group of fucking innocent people that don't fuck up their own quote region, right? That you think should be a country by making their own fucking decisions, right? The people in Venezuela made their own decisions.
I'm looking for the person you're arguing with right now. I don't see them. I don't think either of us has made that point. I'm just
hold on.
I'm just
No,
looking for who they are. Do I got a mouse in my pocket or something?
No, because what happens is when I say that a people, right, in a region, country, whatever, just a group of people, right, elected a leader or a leaders, right, or a regime or whatever, right, that is making their lives hard. You're making some fucking weird, like, just stretch of the imagination that, well, it's not actually the terrorists that are the problem. It's the Jews that are like 5 miles away that are trying to protect themselves from the fucking terrorists.
I have never said that Hamas,
Soya said the word occupation
Iran,
like 50
and
fucking
even
times.
some of the extremist Palestinians aren't also part of the problem.
Dude,
but what
they
I am
are
saying
the fucking
is that the
Misfit. Hold on,
solution
Misfit. Let
that I am
Whick go.
proposing is going to solve and alleviate much of all the problems surrounding it. I'm not here saying that Israel should be destroyed or that from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free.
I know you're
no,
not.
I am arguing that it is in America's interest, in the region's interest, for the Palestinian people to have self-governance and their own, again, self-determining state.
Expound on that.
What if they're evil, though? What if they're evil? Hold on, Wick. What if they're evil?
I don't support an evil state.
Oh, wait. No, I know what you're saying. No, Gibbs. No, I think I get what you're getting at. Look, do you think Jordan deserves a state?
No, I got a better one. Here's
no,
one.
it does. No, because look, Jordan elects leaders. Hezbollah is partly in power and is bombing Israel. Should Jordan have their statehood removed?
Yes.
Okay, see, that's where I'm getting at.
Is
like, I'm assuming you would say the same about anyone else that is involved in this. Lebanon didn't have a state.
Hold on, let's reset one at a time, please.
Every single Sharia practicing country should have their statehood removed. I said it. Boom.
And replaced by what?
Replaced by a fucking democracy or a republic.
Okay, that's a state. You understand?
Sure. Let's not use Sharia.
You're
Let's
just
use a different
looking at
state. Hold on,
changing how their state is governed.
Well,
and fair. But they still
No,
have
no,
a
hold
rid of
fucking
it.
state.
Hold on, Wick. What
Make
if
it all
this
Israel.
country is actually evil? Like, let's pick an actual evil empire from history. I don't know. Like maybe the Aztecs.
Like
or the
Russia, right now.
Americans.
No, let's use
Hold
the
on,
Aztecs.
hold on.
They
Let's
sat
not
here and sacrificed thousands and thousands. 1 3-day period, 88,000 people for one temple. Millions sacrificed over a long period of time, right? The Spanish come in there. There's an uprising against them. They team up with the Spanish. And I guess, you pick your poison. You pick the religious zealots from Spain over the Aztecs, and people have bitching about that on one way or the other. But Aztecs, I think we can agree, were an evil empire for my most extent, right? And so we were sitting here going, hey, well, at least they were self-determined. Like you sound like a jackass. Like, I mean, when we're sitting here going, oh, hey, good. I believe in Western values. And you're sitting here going, hey, you know what? It's better if we throw the gays off buildings. It's better if women suffer. It's better if all these things. Just because they're self-determined.
No one is saying this. I'm going to have to look to see who you're arguing with because it ain't.
Well, that's what you're saying because you're saying it's self-determined.
Gibbs, let me make an analogy. Wait, I need to make an analogy for Gibbs.
I see we're getting down to kind of like an ought claim in that aspect. If you guys want to dive down that angle, I see it here. Just a thought. So I go back to you, please.
Sure. So like America has done horrible things over its entire history. And I don't think that means you can't love America and you can't be a patriot or any of that. I'm not specifically talking about you, Misfit. It's literally anyone who says, I love America does not mean you have to accept every awful thing that's ever happened. However, if Iraq somehow had the power post-Iraq war to come into our country and occupy our peoples and say, you only eat what we tell you to eat, we will not let you leave, and do everything that Israel is doing to Palestine, I would say that probably what's going to happen is you're going to get a huge American resistance that's trying to constantly blow up Iraq, especially if we were closer and somehow Americans had access to intercontinental ballistic missiles in their households, which some people might advocate for. Yeah, I think that's bad. I don't think it's justified. And I think that the inevitable thing that's going to end that violence and that resistance to that occupation is giving them a state and letting them make their own decisions, which inevitably might lead to bad things, like invading Iraq again. But that doesn't mean that the occupation is the way forward.
Are you all right? So what you're doing is you're refusing to acknowledge the pattern of behavior that I talked about earlier, right?
I'm not.
This is no. You are, because what I'm saying is, if you look through the pattern of behavior of this, because let's face it, I can do whataboutism all day. I can bring up Nigeria, I can bring up Africa, I can bring up all of it, right? I can bring up every other Middle Eastern place where this shit just keeps happening, right? But let's just focus on this place, right? I gave you 11 examples where there was negotiations or full-on actual peace deals that were proposed, right? So you have between 5 proposed peace deals and 6 negotiations. You have all 5 that were actually proposed, rejected, and you have war after war after war started by one side. You have 1948, the Arab-Israeli war that was started by the Arab coalition, right? It wasn't the Israelis. You have 1967, started by Palestinian Authority. You have this over and over again. And what you're saying is these people that keep on fighting, they keep on starting the fight, they keep on killing, raping, murdering, they should get a state. And my question is, why?
Well,
because without a state, with that variable being in place where they don't have a state, under those conditions, under those variables, they've rejected peace, and peace has been impossible.
So if you just reward the behavior,
change what is going on, change what we're doing. The height of insanity, the definition of insanity, is to do the same thing over and over and over again.
Your solution is to reward
a different
them.
Result. What I'm asking you to do is consider that perhaps the context in which these deals are being offered without a state present is a contributing factor. In fact, a major contributing factor to why these deals are being rejected.
Wick, and if we state offered all 5 times, all 5 times there was a state offered.
I want to hand it over to Gibbs.
Yeah, they had the state offered 5 times, like you said. He's gotten much more into that than I have. But on top of that, like, I don't want to sound like a dick, but we've talked about all this shit going down, and I'm going to be the dick. Get good scrub. That's why they don't have a state in the longest run. They can't win. They do heinous shit, and then they get their ass whipped. At least with the Aztecs, they did heinous shit, and they knew how to win. But, you know, these guys, they don't know how to win. They're losing. Why would we pick a loser to back them to get a state? And secondly, when they're doing evil shit,
because it saves Israeli lives.
There's no reason. No, it doesn't, because
yes,
it's just
it
going to empower
will in the
them
long
to
term.
fester and do this in the long. Why? What in history gives you that evidence? In history, we know one of the first enemies America has is the Barbary pirates, the Barbary states, and they sat there and they said, because Islam told us we could do this, and that was why. And that is fundamentally against Western values and against America. Why do you sit here and tell me that when we have a democracy that's friendly to us in the region, that if we give these people a state when they've rejected it, and then when they have tried to get it, they've done it through heinous shit and lost? Like, why would we ever want to give these people a state? There's no logical sense to this. Like, explain it.
It's a good argument.
Okay, because when you have, again, people who are stateless, they are more likely to engage in these heinous behaviors because they have nothing to lose.
Why don't Texans engage
when
in
you
heinous
offer
behavior?
them, again, I'm not saying that we should just
wait. Don't let him move on to that. He just brought up Texas, like he didn't just argue about how they fought a fucking war to have their independence. Isn't that the whole point?
Hold on. Hand it back to Whick. Whick was trying to finish the thought there. And
sure.
then we can
look, I'll let you. Soy, after this, you can pin him on the Texas thing, okay? I just don't give a shit about
I'm gonna
Texas.
write it down.
So fuck Texas.
I'm going to write it down right next to
real.
Britney Spears.
But second of all, right? Okay? Right? Like, when we have
crazy work.
And it's like a people, right? And a group that is stateless. They are more susceptible to extremist actions. We know this is true. We've seen this over and over and over again throughout history. What I'm asking us to do, and again, I'm not saying to do it tomorrow. I'm not saying we snap our fingers, say there's a state, and we do nothing else. This is going to be a project of years to do. But overall, if we do it correctly, then we will have a at least better state than we have now.
So
and look, I would even be fine with the argument. Look, and just real quick, if you don't want to give them a state and instead want to let them into Israel to have full voting rights in Israel, I think that would work too. But they do. Hold on. You think
they vote in
Palestinians
the
can vote
election?
in Israel?
Dude, the Palestinians are on the Supreme Court. Arabs are on the Supreme
The people
Court
in
in front of
the
Gaza
Palestinians
aren't
that are
able to vote
already in
Israel's elections?
Israel, not
Yes, they
Oh,
have the
so-
opportunity to acknowledge that Israel is the fucking country they live in, and they can live in peace with Israelis. So occupation, genocide, all these fucking arguments, they don't work. Go ahead, Gibbs. You zoom.
Well, I didn't mean to do that, but I'll use that as a cue. I guess the thing is working for me here. But yeah, I mean, Whick, weren't you today doing an episode on nationalism being a danger to individual liberty, right?
Jewish
and
nationalism,
one of the ideas,
Palestinian nationalism, all the nationalism.
Sure. So one of the
are
ideas
evil.
that you espoused during this thing, if I recall correctly, was that it's a pan-national idea. So it should be an ethnic group across like city lines, like across borders, right? So the Palestinians in Israel and then the Palestinians in Gaza would be a good example. They're in two different regions, but they share a cultural identity, a nation state, right? And that's kind of would that be an
you understand that in the hold on. You understand that in
that's what you're
national
saying.
terms that they are not the same nation, right? Like so
Sure.
the Jewish nation is
I understand that, but you would agree that if the Palestinians all got together and wanted to form a national identity based on their
nationalism would be against mixing these two, right? It would be against mixing these two. So
that's my
having
point.
The Palestinian people with the Jewish people, right, would be anti-nationalist in nature.
Thank you so much, Whick, for my point. So my point was the Palestinians are purely trying to do this on a cultural identity, on an ethnic group. We want a Palestinian state for Palestinians. It's a cultural identity. Some of the ones that live in Israel, the Arabs that do, that are not assimilated, they still want their nationalist nation state, right? That's exactly what. However, just as Misfit Patriot here pointed out, the Israelis are a multi-ethnic nation. They are not a nationalist nation in the way that you're sitting here. Y'all can sit here and try to say those lines, but you wouldn't have Arabs on the Supreme Court. You wouldn't have Arabs on the Supreme Court if they weren't a multi-ethnic, non-nationalist state in the manner you describe it. Because I don't think if I last checked that the Jews and the Arabs were the same ethnic group, because they're not. And so if that's the case, that really destroys your argument over which side's the goodies and which side's the baddies. And once again, it's the Palestinians being the bad guys.
Hey, Jewish nationalism is a thing that exists in Israel. Do you agree or disagree?
No.
Sure. But not the country itself.
Jewish nationalism exists within
you
Israel.
don't think
It's not a nationalist society.
I didn't ask if it was a nationalist society.
Hold on. One at a
Nationalism.
The state itself
Nationalism
is not Jewish nationalists, but there are Jewish nationalists.
All right.
Jewish
Does it
nationalism,
are
is a
there
thing that
Jewish
exists in Israel.
nationalists in Israel? Yeah, there's white
Ben
nationalists in
Gvir
America. Sure,
would be a
yeah.
Jewish nationalist. Right.
I mean,
for no particular reason, I'm going to go to the restroom right now. It's nothing to do with the current.
Okay, when you
elevation
get
of
back, we're
conversation.
going to talk about Texas because you fucked.
I was
all
going to
right?
say I wanted to bring the Texas
we'll get back to that for sure.
All right. But no, okay. So I might have misheard you, Wick, and I apologize. What I'm saying is there's a lot of people that make the argument that that Israel is a nationalist country. It's not. It can't be because you don't have a place called Palestine if you are a nationalist nation. You don't feed your enemies. You don't work with other enemies. It's more nationalism is essentially synonymous with either isolationism or expansionism. Usually expansionism, where they're actually trying to grow their country and their
real quick
identity.
definition of nationalism, right, is that nationalists believe that every different ethnicity is its own nation, and every nation should be governed by its own sovereign state. That's
so
TLDR.
With that definition, hold on. With that definition, would you argue that the idea, whenever Arabs can vote in Israel, or they have Arab Supreme Court justices that are sitting there, would you argue that that is going to sit there and say that they're all the same cultural identity to the level as a multi-ethnic state compared to, the Palestinians who want a Palestinian state for Palestine? Which one is the nationalist by your own definition?
Okay, so I am saying that there are Palestinian nationalists, and that is bad. The people who want to kick out all the Jews and only want Palestine for Palestinians only, that is an evil ideology. I do not support
what percentage
that.
of
I would not
Palestinians is
support a Palestinian state that looked like that. But this assumption that you guys keep making, that
that's the majority of the Palestinians that want that.
And will only be this evil thing is just not true. It's a lack of imagination on your part, a lack of will and determination. We can have and we can advocate for and we can support cosmopolitan, multinational Palestinian state. And that's what I do.
What percentage are you saying, and I mean, I'm sure you don't just have evidence for this, so I'm not expecting you to like pull this out of thin air, but give me a reasonable percentage. Do you think is not, I don't know, in support of a nationalist Palestinian state for the ethnic Palestinians, considering they voted in the PLO and the Hamas the most recently? And if you look at the Dagush or whatever, what are their views?
One of the reasons that they're drawn to these extremist organizations, and
so
I'll just grant you that many are. I'll just grant you that many
are. The majority, probably.
I don't know about the majority.
Wait, are we framing this as a bad thing in comparison to Israel saying it should be a Jewish state? I know that it is multi-ethnic. I know that Arabs do. I know that they're Palestinians, but like, why is this like the determining factor?
No, it's not about that. I just want Whick to tell me though which one fits the more nationalist definition.
And if both nationalists in different ways. Yes, the Jewish nation is less nationalist because they have other ethnicities and allow them to exist within there. However, there are still obstacles placed amongst those ethnicities that don't
There's
exist.
A big difference between national pride in a country being prevalent than a nationalist nation, right? Nationalism is a policy, right? It's a policy of the governing body, right? So Hitler was a nationalist. Hitler was espousing nationalism. Hitler created a nationalist movement. It was.
Can we make a distinction? Like it's ultra nationalism, right? Like saying I support the country. That's what a government should do, right?
Well,
do you think that ultra nationalism doesn't exist? Because that's kind of like the distinguishing factor, right?
No. Let me explain. There's a difference between a nationalist and nationalism. Nationalism is the policy of a country, right? So, and you can say that if the leader of a country or a movement is a nationalist, they are creating a nationalist movement which have nationalists under them. What I'm trying to say is when you have national pride, if you have pride in your country, if you espouse your country is the greatest, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you're a nationalist. It just means national pride.
I mean, it does. Maybe if you don't want to get on the policy side, but sure. But like, what's a nationalist policy then? If you want to make that distinction,
so that's the funny thing, right? If you look it up, nationalism is the idea that you have a superiority over other countries and your country should be put first specifically at the expense of other nations. Patriot.
Doesn't every country do that?
No.
To some extent, that's kind of the point, right?
See, what this country does, and what many other countries do, is they put America's interests, right, not at the expense of other nations, but through coordination, through foreign policy with other nations, right? So, for instance, right, having a relationship with Israel, right, an allyship, doesn't. It kind of flies in the face of nationalism, whereas you can create alliances, right? Like Hitler did with, a bunch of other nations like Italy, Mussolini, et cetera, but he would have still put Italy below him, right? Whereas what America does is we're doing this rising tide raises all ships approach to foreign policy and economic advancement, where we work with other nations, not towards a goal of destroying other nations, but of raising every other nation up. It's a little bit complicated to try to differentiate between nationalism and just being national, like having national pride and like America first.
You mean?
No, patriotism is the vehement defense of one's nation and love of one's nation. Nationalism is the prioritization of a nation over other nations. That's the difference.
But name one country that doesn't prioritize itself over other nations?
Well,
America, when the Democrats are in charge, give all our money to other countries.
Well, what I'm saying is, right, like it's not about prioritization where it's like, okay, obviously we're going to put our mask on first. Nationalism specifically does their own prioritization at the expense. You're leaving that part out. At the expense of other nations.
That generally is how it manifests in many cases, but it's not necessarily so, right? You can have a kind of egalitarian type of nationalism which believes like, oh, the Germans, Germany for the Germans, France for the French, etc., and they shouldn't like compete with each other. They should be in a brotherhood. That's possible.
We can move past this thing too.
Hold on. Let Whick finish.
It's almost beside the point here, right? Because you're correct in that historically, nationalism has tended to lead to the prioritization of your own nation over that of those others, and it's been predatory.
It's predatory. Good
Europe
word.
is a corpse-strewn battlefield of the failures of nationalism. I agree, but when it comes down to my advocacy tonight, it is not for a nationalism. It's not for an ethnic state where Palestine and only Palestinians have access to Palestine and things like that. Well, I am saying that there's a group of people who are currently stateless that if we, America, helped support them and give them a state and helped develop that state, it would be better for not only the Palestinian people, but for Israelis. And now we're back to Texas, and I'll let Texas because I don't give a shit about Texas.
Oh, no, because I'm gonna fuck your whole argument up. Listen, I'm going to fucking doggy style your argument right now. Okay, why is Texas?
Big words, little man.
Why is Texas part of the United States of America, and why are we not killing other people right now? Right? Because this is the argument that you're making. You're making the argument. You've made it several times tonight that the way to solve this problem is to give Palestine a state. Right, because they are stateless.
Step to solving this problem.
They are stateless, right? So in 1861, right, Texas seceded from the Union, and they were essentially they were stateless. They were their own country, but they weren't really a recognized country. They were very
no. They were stateless. They had their own state. It was different than what we had.
Lost a battle in Texas. No big deal.
Go ahead and finish, Misfit.
No, you let me. No, so but Palestine is recognized by many other countries, and people say it's already a state. So Texas can be argued in the same way. However, what happened, right, with Texas? Texas eventually, right, we had a civil war in this country, and they joined the United States of America, right? So the comparison for Israel and Palestine right now, which I have made very many times in the past, is this is a civil war between a region in Israel, the same way Texas is a region in America that is rebelling against the state that they already have. And the solution does not have to be statehood. Maybe it just has to be a civil war where one side, Texas/Palestine, agrees, hey, you know what? We kind of fucked up. Maybe we'll just join Israel and stop being cunts.
Well, I don't know about all that, but that was just what the fuck.
The analogy worked.
I guess.
So first of all, no, Texas during that period was not stateless.
I'm not saying. Listen, don't think about it too hard. You'll blow your fucking brains out.
I am.
Do you want to add to that, Gibbs?
I do want to add to that. I don't know if I agree with the exact logic of how it got there.
You broke him.
Yeah, he broke me. I
broke my own fucking
my ancestors are screaming out to me from the grave.
Well, we also used to be Mexico, so we're technically Mexicans.
But just
go ahead, Gibbs.
I think a better analogy, if we're going to use Texas, is Texas has two major parties now: Democrats and Republicans. Right, we used to have three, and the Texas Nationalist was the third biggest party, and they got absorbed by the Republicans. And the Republicans and the Texas official stance is prepare for breakaway. Right, that's why you see us doing all this stuff like our own grid. You have our own bank reserves. We have the new. We're trying to get the new stock exchanges in Dallas. We're all trying to become if just in case we want to be able to do it. Right, but I think that's the difference. We're sitting here preparing and we're working within bounds of the system, as opposed to I don't know, hey, let's build this desal plant in Corpus Christi, tear it down, and then start shooting missiles in the United States to get what we want. That's not what we're doing. And the Palestinians, though,
why aren't you doing it though?
Why aren't we?
Why isn't Texas firing missiles into America?
Because we are law-abiding patriots, and we want to sit here and create a moral.
Because we're not Palestinians,
unlike the Palestinians who sit here.
Oh, sorry. Is it something in the Palestinian genetic code? I've got the missile itch today. I really got to do it.
It kind of is.
Hold on. The culture in the region. Whenever you're sitting here going, oh, hey, they built water plants instead of using the water plants. Let's tear these up and use them to launch missiles.
You don't think it's in Texas culture to revolt against the American government?
It kind of is.
Hold on. Listen, it could be. I'm just saying right now.
My point is the material conditions of the average Texan citizen has nowhere even close to the material conditions of an average Palestinian citizen
because
today. With the control of the
do things with respect and under a reasonable understanding. We're not sitting here going like, "Hey, we just got our asses kicked. Let's go fight them again." Like,
you have 175 years of civilizing us, right? Where it's like, all right, yes, the deep South Confederates are way different than your average everyday Texan today. My point was not to make a perfect analogy. My point was to show you guys. My point was to show you that if you offer a state to somebody who is rebelling against the country that they're in, it's not always the best idea. If we said, you know what, keep your slaves, and we had the country of Texas right now that still had slaves, would you think it would be a better or worse Texas? That's my point.
But what you're saying is, like,
I got to do a history lesson.
Well, hold on, because you said that like Texas isn't their own. Okay, go ahead.
You're trading these weird binaries that don't actually exist.
No shit, dickhead. That's why it's a fucking analogy.
Hold on. Give any old state and let them do whatever the fuck they want.
What's Fetty?
No, obviously not. If they created this slave empire state, I'd be like, okay, time to tear that form of government down. But what I'm arguing for tonight is that what we're being done towards Palestine, how Israel has treated Palestine, how America has treated Palestine and refused to recognize Palestinian statehood is not working. So if America specifically worked with Israel and others in the region, Saudi Arabia, all those other Abrahamic Accord countries, right, established peace, as Trump is trying to do, okay, and then built up the region, they would prepare it for statehood, and that is something that we should want because it will make the region more stable.
Wick, what you're leaving out is what you're leaving out. What you're leaving out.
Hold on. I wanted to hold on. I wanted to give Soy because Soy. It looked like you were trying to tap in too. So if
I mean, real quick, I'll let him go. But, right, I'll be real fast. And the idea is, yes, the reason this is a bad analogy and not just a not one-to-one is that the material conditions of these Texan citizens are not such that they feel the need that their only outlet is to support violence and terroristic regimes. And when they did feel that way, they had a fucking war with America in the same way that Americans had a war with the British, and they did it again after getting statehood a few decades later. And the point is not that these things are one-to-one. Obviously, I agree. It's very hard to make an analogy. Palestine is very unique. It's got a unique history. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not able to be mapped onto anything else. But the point is that if you continue to let these people, not let these people have their own self-determination, because they haven't. You talk about, well, they voted in Hamas. Oh, they did the PLO thing. These are all under the conditions of what started out as the British coming in and saying, get the fuck out of this land. We're cleansing you from it because we determined that it is not yours anymore. And yeah, you can argue whether or not that's justified. I don't give a shit about that specifically. The point is these people don't have what they feel to be self-determination, and that's going to keep leading to violence and revolt. And it's not going to work if you just say, Israel, do whatever you want.
That's what I'm saying. And this is why the analogy actually does work. What was the determining factor for the Civil War of America? Slavery, most likely. It was. I know it was a bunch of different things, but let's just
states' rights.
It was states' rights, but the rights that they wanted were fucking slaves. All right. So, right, Palestinians, they want their own state for their own Muslim Sharia practicing region, right? And what I'm saying is Israel is not allowing that, right? Israel is not allowing them to just vote in Hamas, vote in terrorism, allow terrorists to do terrorist shit. And I get it's not a one-to-one comparison. That's why
Israel actually supported Hamas over the PLO.
Oh my God, they gave them money to keep them at bay. But dude,
but the point is they saw them as a more viable alternative to the PLO to justify what Israel is doing. So I know, and I'm not saying that you support that doing that, and I'm not doing some weird conspiracy like, oh, they want them there. The idea that Israel is not allowing them to become violent, Israel has created the conditions that have had all these things happening. I'm not saying Palestinians don't have the fucking liability of they made this happen, but Israel didn't stop Hamas terrorism.
Wick earlier said something that's very prevalent, right? Here's the deal. You say how Israel is treating the Palestinians, how America is treating the Palestinians, how the rest of the world is treating the Palestinians. What he left out was how the Palestinians are treating Israel. Okay, they're firing fucking thousands of rockets a year into Israel. They're trying to kill them every fucking week, right? They're trying to kill Jews. And when do you wake up and go, maybe the Jews have a point? Maybe they should fuck them up, right? Maybe.
I'm definitely okay with them going in and purging Hamas, killing every single one of them.
It's not easy because they have human shields.
I'm fine with that. But the problem I have is that if you do that, you need to give them a state, right? You need to give them
Why?
Because without that state, they're just going to have another Hamas in 2 to 5 years.
But if you give them a state, and how do you run it? You mean give them a government?
Okay,
you mean give them a government?
A huge kind of issue. I can't give
solve
you
Israel Palestine right fucking now, Whick. If you can't do it, then you are abdicating the whole argument. If you don't have a solution,
no. But you know what? You make a good point. You're trying to simplify this to give them a state. It's not that easy, dude.
Hold on. I got a question.
To argue that it's easy. I'm arguing that it's going to take years of work. It's going to take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but that at the end, it's going to be better than the state we have now.
We don't have a state.
Let me
state of the region.
Yeah, I do want to jump in here. Okay, let's just give a different hypothetical. Okay, let's just say the end goal is to give Palestine a state.
What if there was Star Wars and there was a Death Star?
What if there was a spaghetti monster behind the moon? Who knows? Whatever. All right, cool. Listen, so this is just in the realm of possibility, though. So we know how Egypt has handled the Muslim Brotherhood, right? They have handled them. Let's go with harshly. And I know there are people that have been critical of how Israel has handled Hamas. They've said it's been a genocide. They've said it's been crazy and evil and terrible and all these things. And I'm like, okay, let's just say both those things are true. Let's just say we give Egypt, as part of this new Trump deal, control over Palestine. Do you think that it's going to be better or worse under Egyptian military rule while they eliminate Hamas to the last man than if Israel would do it? And there's a two-second part to this. So what do you think? It's going to be nicer for the Palestinians or worse for them? If Egypt is in control of rooting out Hamas?
For the Palestinian people or for Hamas?
For both. Yeah, I mean, you can give both.
For Hamas, it's probably going to be worse for Hamas if Egypt's getting control. For the Palestinian people, I'm not sure.
Yeah, again, Gibbs, it depends on what this looks like, right? Like if you're saying do exactly what Israel has been doing for the past 20 years, but Egypt does it, yeah, it's probably not better. But if we're arguing, again, like my hypothetical, and I'm not saying this is like a perfect plan that I've drawn out, because obviously this is super complicated. You're right. It's not easy. It's not to just give them a state. But if we do something akin to like the Marshall Plan that we did for Japan and Germany, yeah, it's technically occupation in the same way to some extent. You do have some sort of foreign government that has some sort of control over certain things, but you do not restrict the people to the same extent that they've been restricted right now.
Here's my point what I'm making with this, right? So, okay, we know right now if the Trump plan goes through and Israel and all this all finally works out, the idea is to eventually let the Saudis, I believe, and the Egyptians, and maybe I think a coalition of somebody else, maybe the Jordanians, I don't know what the other one was, be the ones that run this, right? And they're going to go in there. Now, I don't know if you know what their human rights records are, but they're not too good, right? And so when you're saying, I don't know if it'll be better for the Palestinians, I can
better or worse
assuredly listen, that's not saying much. But when I'm sitting here going, what's going to be better compared to Israel gets rid of Hamas or let these people get rid of Hamas? Oh, well, I got to say, I think it's probably going to be much better for the Palestinians if Israel just conducts it like it's part of its own country and gets rid of this group and then assimilates these people and gives them a fair say, like they've already done with all the other Arabs.
Beautiful.
And just
I'd be for that.
You're not okay with that. You want an independent state.
Hold on. No. Stop, Gibbs. That would
lead to more
great.
death for the Palestinians.
Israel doesn't want to do that.
Why do you say that?
What do you mean? They're
That's what
putting
they
settlements
proposed.
there. That's what they
Do you
proposed.
think
Yeah.
that Israel is proposing giving Gazans the same voting rights that the rest of Israel has?
That's what they've done with the Arabs in their country. Yeah, over time, sure.
Yeah, they've done that.
No, they don't. If you're calling that what you I think are describing is the one-state solution, which is make this part of Greater Israel, which they explicitly oppose
And
because
nobody
they
said
say
Greater Israel. They said Israel.
okay, of Israel, whatever. I just used the term greater. But the point is that they would not support this because they've made this argument. And actually, I'm sympathetic to this. Some people call this racist, but the idea that a bunch of people that you've been killing for decades now have the right to vote in your country, yeah, it's like, hey, maybe if there's more of them than us, they might elect a government that would treat us similar ways. I understand why they wouldn't do that, but that's not what they're doing. They're not proposing giving these people rights.
Why do you always leave out the part where Palestinians are killing Israelis?
Because obviously we both know that's happening. I'm not saying that's not.
Yeah, that's not
actually, it's because I'm anti-Semitic.
No, you intentionally left it out. You're like, Israel's killing these people. All right, Palestinians are killing Israelis.
Yes, I understand
it
that.
Kind of fucks up your argument when you fucking put it into context.
No,
right?
If anything, I was granting you. Well, I was arguing against the idea that they want to give these people voting rights in Israel. But I am saying that because of the violence committed by both
Jewish
sides.
settlers in these other in the areas that are like controversial where they settle, are they given voting rights? We know they are.
Are the Jews settling in the West Bank giving voting rights? What do you mean?
Yeah, it's something. Yeah. If the Jews settle in Palestinian territories, they can vote in Israeli elections. We know that, right? The settlers can. Okay.
Can they vote in
we know that. Oh, some of these groups, like the Druze, have been annexed by them. They have been given voting rights. We've seen other Arab groups get voting rights, and it's just that over time, as they assimilate to Israel, and Israel deems them part of the country, and guess what? Okay, cool, y'all are officially in, and just like we've done in the United States a bunch of times. Where we like people assimilate in, they get voting rights over time, etc., etc. I don't see how this is any different. You're acting like, oh, just overnight, let's just give them all voting rights. Of course,
no, we're not saying that though.
Palestinian subjects living under occupation in the West Bank and Gaza.
There's no occupation. Stop saying
that's not what I said. I said the Jewish settlers in that area get those rights.
Well, yeah, they're still Israeli citizens.
Did the Israelis have?
So you got to assimilate.
Did the Israelis have any?
What?
Did the Israelis vote in the decision for Gaza to elect Hamas?
No.
Why?
Because they don't live in Palestine.
Oh, fucking great. I just made an argument for why Israel doesn't allow them to vote in their elections.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was saying. I'm saying there's potentially valid reasons for not letting them do that.
Or Gaza to become part of Israel, then you have to admit that they would have to, you'd have to give voting rights to the people.
Yeah, over time.
Okay.
Yeah, like Germans weren't allowed to vote. Germans were not allowed to vote.
Against that.
Germans weren't allowed to vote in World War II, post World War II, until 1949, right? Like there was a process to this. It wasn't give them voting rights overnight, but after a while, after letting them establish their state again and saying, look, this is still your territory. This is not America. Yeah, we divided up regions into control, but we didn't say, hey, this is Russia now, like the Russians did. And guess what? Those people fucking revolted for the next decades because they weren't happy, because they were oppressed, because they weren't allowed to freely travel. And yet when we gave them self-determination, we said, hey, you can elect your pro-democratic German government, and you can, in 1949, those people didn't revolt against the West. Those people stopped doing nearly as many violence, and you didn't see terrorist groups like you did see in East Germany. And that's kind of what the point is, that once you give these people the ability to do these things, and I think Misfit Patriot, I agree with you. I don't think Israelis are likely to give these people voting rights in Israel if it becomes part of Israel, like you're saying. I think that they need to have their own state where they can have their own voting rights.
Well, North Carolina can't vote in Texas elections, right? Does that mean that North Carolina and Texans are at war? No, it just means
but if North Carolina was controlling, if North Carolina was controlling how much food gets into Texas and whether or not they could leave Texas,
just stop lying. Just stop saying.
In your own example,
I'm not lying. At worst, I'm just wrong. I promise you.
Stop saying. Stop saying a thing is happening that isn't happening. All right, I can prove to you it's not happening. Right, because there is fucking a whole entire field of aid that Israel is giving Palestinians. It goes right through the Rafah border, right? There are pallets of them. And what happens is when they give them that aid, Hamas gets on the top of the trucks with fucking rifles and they shoot Palestinians, right? So yeah, controlling whether or not the bombs come in, controlling whether or not, the anything that can be used against Israelis during a war, during a conflict, that's kind of normal behavior.
Right. But again, Misfit, in Germany, the United States did this. They didn't let them have a military. They did control things that were coming in and out. They had borders. They had strict guards. But it was not even close to the same extent to what Israel is doing right now in Gaza.
But why are they doing it? That's the question.
Hold on. In your own example, Soy. All right, in your own example, are Eastern European countries to this day as safe as countries on the western side of Europe? The answer is no. They're not. Why is that? Because they sat there and they did have these terrorists and all these things breed up. They've had all this chaos. You had the racial tension as soon as the power vacuum pulled away, and they started killing each other, just like they're doing over here in this region, right? We've seen this all over Kosovo. We've seen this in like Georgia. We've seen this all over Eastern Europe. But guess what? Hey, what you're arguing is you're basically saying, oh, we have an Eastern Europe situation here.
Uh-oh. Did he
me or-
freeze?
No,
Nope,
it was him.
People govern themselves.
Wait,
sorry,
Gibbs, can you go back
Yeah,
10
you
seconds?
missed a spot there.
Yeah,
You froze.
so what you're basically saying is we have an Eastern European situation here, not a Western European situation. So you go, hey, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do what Russia did. We're going to pull out and let these people govern themselves, give them their own state. Well, what has happened in Eastern Europe? These people tried to kill each other a million fucking times. They're still not saying. Well, that is what you're saying. Because
No, I'm saying we should have it be like a Western
Western
Europe situation.
Yeah, but that's not that you're ignoring history, right? For the last 100 years or so, they've been killing each other in droves, right? And it's not like it's definitely an Eastern European situation where Israel's only been able to keep the peace through might. And now you're saying
But they're not keeping the peace.
Might.
That's the point. That's our whole
They're doing
point.
it better
is
than
that
it was before.
they're better. How we have had the most casualties ever. What are you talking about?
No, now they've had the most casualties because they finally gone to war to clean them out. But before that, they've kept them in there, and they've kept this terrorist group run a little organization country or whatever it is. They've kept them at bay by surrounding them and not letting them escape into the
obviously that was
overall thing.
unsustainable.
Yeah, it wasn't working. What do you, how are you saying?
It
Yeah,
seems
that
like
was
it's working. The ratio is crazy. It's like 1 to 1,000,000. Like, what are you talking about?
This debate sucks.
No, you're saying that everything that led to all of the horrible things we're seeing today was sustainable, and this was them doing the right
No,
thing.
I'm saying
You're
saying
arguing
pull
that
these
this.
people out. By pulling these people out, you're going to make it even more unstable.
No, I'm not saying just leave and do nothing and let them do whatever the fuck they want.
Okay, can we
I'm
get
saying-
back? All right, let's get back to the prompt. All right, look, here's the deal. What
That
is
is
the
part of the
argument? What? No. It's like, what is the actual fucking argument here? All right, we've already talked about should Palestine be a state. Okay, we've given our arguments why it shouldn't. You've given your arguments why it should. Now we're getting into a fucking litany of whataboutisms and hypotheticals. I'm tired of it. Tell me why, and we'll fucking wrap this up. I'm fucking tired.
Oh, I know it's exhausting.
We do have about 10, 15 more minutes left. I would like to propose in there the idea that it is an ought claim, which could come down to a morality stance. That could be a direction that you guys could go if you so choose. But
it's not about morality for me. I don't think it is for Whick either. We're just saying this would be practically a better thing. Yeah.
Just give us a reasonable
I don't see-
actual
I guess
solution.
What evidence do you have to support that? Because I'm sitting here looking at all the evidence, and all the evidence indicates that they're going to go right back to killing each other the minute you give them a state. Like, so why do you think it's going to suddenly change things?
Like this idea, and this is something that you guys have been leaning on this whole debate, and I find it fallacious, and I'll tell you why. Right? This idea that just because something has been so, that it must always be so in perpetuity, and that nothing we can do, there's no action that we can take, there's no policy that we can make that will fix this and change the circumstances is going to work, I find just, again, unconvincing of an argument.
Well,
Surely I can't give you the golden bullet. I can't give you the exact specific borders, the exact specific proposal.
So you pick the
exact
prompt.
hold on, let me finish. The exact specific set of words that are necessary to make things work. But what I'm advocating for is that we fucking try. That
Okay,
But wait, he's brought up the evidence of the rejections.
And use a policy to promote, that America support the eventual formation of a Palestinian state.
I'm going to give it right to you. I'll just real quick. Look, Whick, you've said earlier, y'all said that you wanted something where they would give up the weapons and you'd have other people rule, right? That was something you envisioned as a state or a transitionary period.
What are you
Misfit
talking
Patriot, earlier in the debate, you brought up part of it was like, oh, maybe we don't.
I brought up the idea of demilitarization.
And y'all have argued that and other countries come in and take over. Basically, these people will have the weapons. They demilitarize, right? Hamas and other organizations in Palestinian history, and Misfit's brought this up several times, have rejected that on its head several times. Right?
Yeah, but why?
That they will not, as part of it, they will not demilitarize. So when you say, hey, why does it matter if we're just going to look, it's just going to keep happening? Well, you're not presenting a scenario that's any different than any of these other scenarios. And logic dictates that if you expect a different outcome, then when you keep doing the same thing, then you're fucking crazy. And so when I'm sitting here hearing this, you're saying, let's do the exact same thing. That's not worked 5 other times.
Gibbs, the problem is you keep alluding to the rejection from whatever deals, and you're saying, well, we offered state, they don't want state. And the problem is that you're not looking at the nuance of each and all of these deals and why certain peoples did not want to agree to certain parts of these deals.
I'm gonna fucking jump through the screen right now. All right, let me figure this out. Okay, Whick, you propose this fucking prompt and you don't have an actual solution, right? That's what's pissing me off. You're like, well, we just gotta give them a state, okay? This is what's bothering me about your entire fucking argument. Your entire argument is, well, let's just try the thing that has happened in multiple other regions. We've done this, right? We've done this. We've literally
done this in Japan. Did Japan work? Did we?
You know what worked? You know what?
Well, no, because they made anime.
Hold on. You know what worked with Japan? I'll tell you what worked with Japan. When Japan touched our boats, we fucking bombed them. And you know Trump was just on TV talking about how Japan's fucking one of the greatest allies of America ever, right? So if you want to use the Japan argument, we should kill them
correctly.
We should kill the fuck out of them and then wait fucking 60 years. All right, so let's do this, right? You created a prompt. You're the one. You're to blame, right? You said Palestinians deserve a state, okay? And then you did not.
We should support. Soy said deserve. Soy did say deserve, but
Soy says a lot of things.
You said America should support Palestine having a state. Here's my argument for why we should not do that, right? On September 11th, 2001, there were no dancing Israelis, but there were a lot of dancing Palestinians. Okay, and if you tell me that was a long time ago, I will tell you to go fuck yourself. All right, because they haven't changed. That's the point we're making.
What do you mean? The Palestinians didn't do 9/11, dude.
The Palestinians didn't do 9/11, but they celebrated 9/11. And
so did a bunch of people that have states and don't have states.
What we're showing you is right now. I have 83 years of history. I have the Peel Commission in 1937. I have the UN Partition Plan in 1947. I have the post-1967 war proposals all the way through the 70s. I have the Camp David Accords. I have the Oslo Accords. I have the Camp David Summit. I have the Taba talks. And I have the roadmap for peace. That was 2003. That was right around the time they elected Hamas, right? The Annapolis Conference, 2007. The Kerry Parameters talks in 2013 and 14. And I have Trump's plan that just happened in 2020 with the Oslo Accords. Now, we also have the fucking brand new one that you motherfuckers say won't work. And it's only been going on for 3 weeks. So what I'm saying is there has been a pattern of behavior over 83 fucking years where there is one side that just goes, no. Right. So at what point do you go, hey, maybe Whick is wrong. Maybe America shouldn't, right, actually support Palestine having a state, because maybe, just maybe, if you fucking rob me 3 times, I won't fucking let you in my house. Maybe if you screw me over, and maybe if my girlfriend cheats on me 1 time, right, I don't leave her alone with another guy. Maybe if she cheats on me 2 times, I break up with her. Right? Like, how about that? Like, can we just fucking use common sense here? What are we even doing?
I'd have to go into the specifics of all 11 of the stands and look at the reasons they fell apart. And because the way you're framing it as Palestinians won't accept any deal, when clearly there are reasons that I may or may not agree with.
I tried 11 times to do a thing, which means I should just give up and never do anything else.
Yes, maybe you should.
That's loser talk. That's loser talk.
Yes. Yeah. Look. Hey, Whick.
She's only cheated on me 11 times, boys.
I asked 11 girls out, and all 11 girls said no. I'm going to be an incel now. It's incel. What you're doing is incel rhetoric. You're acting like an incel.
50 no's and a yes.
That's what's happening.
Can I ask the question? Is Palestine like resourceful enough to create a state that would function and play well with others? Like, do they have the capacity?
Support it in various different ways that would be expensive and time consuming, but it's possible.
And we have to pass the bill before we know what's in it.
America's going to fund it now, guys. That's what he wants. America to fund it. You asked earlier what countries look out for themselves. Apparently, it's America.
Sequester a few $1 billion that we give to Israel to help Israel not be attacked as much. It's
Look,
probably not that
if we
hard.
took the $40 billion that we're giving to
Insanity
Argentina
now.
and we put it in to building a Palestinian state,
Well, then what
I
happens
think
to
we could do it.
Argentina?
Hold on.
Well, then we just take it away from Argentina. What happens to Argentina?
It's not a zero-sum game. We
I
can
wonder,
put more
are
money
you talking
out.
about the beef? Is that what we're
We
talking
can just
about
print
now?
more money. We could just give
We
Palestine.
literally
give
can.
Palestine
We're allowed to do that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's no wonder why we're $36 trillion in debt, because people like you just keep on saying, you know what we should do? We should just
Trump
give all
is
of
the
our shit
biggest
away.
increaser of
Trump's
the
the
debt,
one
actually.
giving
So
$40
I don't know what you're
billion
talking about.
Hold on.
Not
Let's
me.
reset. We've got just a few more minutes left. So if there's any final arguments you'd like to leave on the floor, if not, we can absolutely move to closings. If anyone had one last.
Oh yeah,
I think
we're going
I've
to talk
made
about
my
Texas
argument
in a
pretty
second.
coherently,
I'll tell you.
and I think that we've heard a lot of whataboutisms from the other side, but we can do
Both
that.
sides, actually. Like, fucking
Yeah.
not.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move into closing statements, gentlemen. Misfit, I will hand the floor to you to kick us off.
Good. Here's my closing argument. This whole fucking debate is retarded. It's the same as my opening argument, right? We have beaten this fucking horse to death, right? And there are so many people that want to keep it alive because they have, made a lot of views off of it. A lot of engagement has come from it. But here's the real deal. We shouldn't give a fuck about Palestine, all right, at all. Right. The reason why we should care about Israel is because they're a strategic ally. We get a lot from them. Right. We get IT. We get medical. We get a strategic partner in the Middle East that fights our enemies for us. What the fuck do we get from Palestine? Nothing. Right. Nothing. Not even a little bit. Right. Even Ukraine, I can make an argument for. We get mail order brides. Right. But we don't get shit from Palestine. And you know what? America needs to be a little bit selfish every once in a while. We need to go, what do you do for me? Even Qatar, we have a military base there. You can't even put a military base in Gaza because it's a tiny little fucking strip. Right. Israel is a country the size of New Jersey that's about 50% developed. Right. Which means it's about half the size of New Jersey. And fucking Gaza is the size of Detroit. All right. And honestly, I can do without Detroit. So I don't care. I don't give a fuck about them. They're a bunch of fucking goat fucking inbred pieces of shit terrorists. Not all of them, most of them. And you know how I know that? Because I watched the fucking footage from October 7th when it wasn't just Hamas that was going in and cutting people's heads off with garden tools. It was the fucking citizens. It was the citizens spitting on the fucking dead bodies of the women that were in the back of the trucks with their fucking hips broken because they were raped so many times. I don't care about these people at all. Not even a little bit. Right? And the fact that fucking Whick and fucking Soy Boy over here do, that doesn't fucking bother me. Right? Because they're retarded. So, bottom line, no. Palestine shouldn't be a state. Closing argument. Go fuck yourself.
Now that we've devolved into that, I just want to point out you've misspelled uncensored in your little banner there.
That's cool. I'm fucking dyslexic.
Oh, it is tiny. It's okay. Gibbs, your closing statement, please.
Well, yeah. So I'm gonna use a portion of this to do a little Texas history. I know that Whick is excited to hear about it, so we're gonna do it. And because my ancestors are screaming out to me from the grave after my fellow Texan said some things, and I think he said it from the good of his heart. But we have to correct it.
I'm from Boston.
Cover the Gibbs. I cover the Gibbs family, right? Colonel Gibbs has a hotel in San Antonio where that cannons from the Alamo are held. I've been here. My family, my family, been here since the Revolution. I take pride in my Texas history. And, we talked about slavery earlier. Texas had 1/6 of the slaves at its peak that any of the other states had, right? Basically, it was the least number. Now, if you want to know why, it's because we're a ranching state. And I don't know if you can figure out what happens whenever you do free roam ranching. You have to lead people up from the bottom of the South Texas to the top, up to Dallas. But when that's 800-900 miles of open territory, and you put a slave on a horse, what do you think happens? They disappear. It's just not conducive to slavery. So we didn't have as much slavery here in Texas. So Texas, despite the leftist narrative, was a slave state, but a very small slave state comparatively, and really we were moving away from slavery in general. So that's not why Texas joined the Confederacy. We joined it because of our Texas national roots, and we were probably going to leave the Confederacy soon after the breakaway. Finally, now moving on, I don't know about all this other stuff, but if the United States wants to get these hands, they can come get these hands. But right now, things are pretty good. So that's kind of my opinion on that. finally, back to what we're sitting here talking about, this topic at hand today. Listen, Palestine has proved to be untrustworthy in all regards. Every time we've offered them something, they've slapped it away. They've said here, even when it's been just the actions, we go, hey, Israel said we're going to build water plants to help you. The complaint is they don't get fed, they don't get water. Well, guess what? They built 3 water plants. What was happened? The Palestinians tore them up, used them to launch rockets on the people that built them. This has happened repeatedly. We can lose other numerous examples. They keep electing evil leaders, and they keep attacking the Israelis. There's no evidence to support this is going to change. And Soypill and Wick's argument is basically like, well, let's try the same thing a 12th time. It's bound to work that time, even though the situation's gotten progressively worse. And we think that this time it'll work. And they offer no evidence to point out why is this time is any different. It's not any different, except maybe we can have some authoritarian states like Saudi Arabia and Egypt come in there and just wipe out massive numbers of people. And then we don't have to worry about claims on ethnic cleansing because there won't be anybody left because the other Arab countries kill them all. I mean, maybe then they can have a state. I guess that's what they're arguing. At least with what me and Misfit are arguing, they can join into Israel over time. They can assimilate, become full citizens like every other group that's done that in Israel. And I just don't see how their argument has any validity to it. And so in conclusion, they're wrong. We're right. Texas also is the best.
I didn't want Wick to be the only one that had a handle, so I went and got mine.
We know what happened last time you did that. Thank you. Soy Pill to you, please.
Sorry, I was just thinking about Texas slavery relativism.
I knew you'd like that.
The horses, man. Speaking of horses, my chat's obviously requesting the horse video, Sarah. Look, the reason we're arguing for statehood is not, hey, let's let the Palestinians do whatever the fuck they want tomorrow. The idea is that when you have a group of people, wherever that is, whether it's America in 1776, whether it's any group that has ever formed a terrorist organization, almost inevitably is because of some sort of restriction, because their day-to-day lives are not allowing them the freedoms to express themselves, to have self-determination, to go where they want, to eat what they want. There's some sort of condition that is breeding this terrorism. And I think that Israel has been breeding this terrorism, not on purpose, obviously, although sometimes they did support Hamas to their own interests. They don't want people to fire rockets into their fucking country. States do this. Non-states do this. The problem is that when you put these people in a position where they have no other way to communicate or express themselves other than, hey, let's fucking revolt because our lives are abjectly horrible, whether that is in part because of Hamas, it is, don't get me wrong. I think that can be alleviated with at least some sort of transitionary period into a statehood. Now, if it was true that Israel was going to let these people integrate into Israel, which I don't think is going to happen, I would be okay with that if that means that there's no state, but they get to have that sort of self-determination in Israel. Yeah, that's fine. They don't need a state if that was going to happen. I don't think anything close to that is ever going to happen, which is why I support some sort of either American or some sort of oversight committee that is helping these people transition back into some sort of democratic thing, the same way we did in a Marshall Plan. I think that's totally feasible. And I think that if we look at every single thing where they rejected a peace deal and say that this is all just because Palestinians are unreasonable goat fucking inbreds or whatever the fuck you said, Misfit, is completely ahistorical and you're not analyzing it the same way. Although I wish I was more informed on why some of these peace deals fell apart. I know for sure the Oslo one was because of terrorism that happened before, and they did accept it to an extent. But Israel is not some bastion of good faith where they're like, yep, here's your state, you get to do whatever you want. There are very many restrictions on these things. There are territorial claims. There are ways that Israel always comes out on top of these things, and it makes sense why some of these people reject it, whether or not you think it was a good deal. So I think that there needs to be some sort of ability for these people to have self-determination. It's not happening now. I don't see it happening anytime soon under the Trump admin. I think more violence is going to happen. I don't want that to happen. I think it's in America's best interest to have less people killed. I think statehood is the way you get to that. But anyway, thanks for having me.
Good argument.
Thank you, Soy Pill. And Wick, final words to you, please.
I'll be short. I'll be sweet. Okay. At the end of the day, it's about what will make the lives of the people in the region better and what will make the interests of America better. Misfit sees a field and it goes unplanted, unsowed, and he says, look, this isn't giving us anything. It's barren. Why should we do anything there? I am saying that we should plant some seeds there. We should actively till the field, cultivate the soil, and so that eventually, over time, it will grow us a good crop. Okay? I think it won't be easy and it won't be short, but giving Palestinians a path to statehood, right? Or I would even accept integration into the Israel proper would both be fine. But Israel doesn't want that. Israel has had 83 years to integrate Palestine into Israel proper. They have not done so for a variety of reasons that are some very good reasons. Palestinians have often killed Israelis. There is a problem there that has to be addressed. Hamas and other, again, terroristic governments that have run them and bad actors from foreign entities such as Qatar and Iran who have used Palestinians in order to strike at Israel are a real problem. But that problem gets alleviated when you give Palestinians a state. And it's going to take time, blood, and treasure, but it is something that Americans can do and it should do because it will overall, at the end of the day, once it is done, create a better world, not just for Palestinians, but for Israelis, for everyone in the region, and for America. Thank you, and good night.
Perfect. Again, good night. Thank you, gentlemen. What a pleasure having you on for this. For the record, we're going to read your kind super chats and get through that. And then, of course, I have dropped the link into the YouTube live chat. So if you would like to come on to further discuss with the panel, you're more than welcome to hit that link now.
Yeah, where that Millie 999 is, you get in there. I want to fucking talk to you.
Hey, wait, just to do the closing there. You, I guess you don't like the parable of the sower too much, huh?
Well, it depends on the.
Yeah, it depends on the message, I guess.
Sarah, I'm gonna hard out at 11, which is my time. So about 35 minutes. I'm hard.
Okay, perfect. Well, I do have a panel sitting backstage, so let's move as quickly and concisely as we can through the super chats. If you have a response, please feel free to say something. And if you don't, just shut up and we'll move on. Evan Lord says, if you look historically, the region of Palestine has been primarily a region administered by the Egypt province under Islamic empires. And hello, Miss Sarah. Hello to you, Evan. Any thoughts to this?
Fact check true. Egypt has done a lot more persecution to the Palestinians than Israel has. Israel has tried to work with them because Israel cares about Israel and Israel doesn't want to fight. They're actually kind of, and I'm not saying this in like a negative way, especially as somebody who supports them. You guys are kind of pussies, right? Like you guys don't want to fight. I think you should. I think that Egypt has the right idea. Build a giant fucking razor wall in between you and them and say, have fun. Like, that's what I would do, but they don't.
Fair enough. Tom Carpenter says, nice classy look tonight. Don't know how long I'll be able to stay, but keep it up. Thank you, Tom. I see he was, yeah.
Can I mention on that last one real quick?
Oh, yeah.
I do just want to point out, you know, if you just look at that area throughout history, there's not many like places that there's never like Palestine. It's not ever a thing. It's a late Ottoman Empire. You know, I don't know about it just primarily being under Egypt, but you know, we can look at like, you know, it was Greater Judea. We under Rome. You know, we have the Levant. Like at some point, they're calling it that under different organizations, under different governments. We have like the Persians controlled it, the Babylonians controlled it. You know, and then the Jews definitely had different separate like kingdoms in that area, and Rome and all these areas, and they all had it, and none of them recognized Palestine as the area. In fact, even biblically, when you talk about us, you know, they're called Samaritans, but we don't hear anybody talk about Samaritan independence. You know, we could go further back if you want to really go further back. You go, oh, the Phoenicians, that like the little colony that came over to see peoples, a bit the Philistines. Sure, maybe.
I frankly,
why does it matter?
I don't find
it doesn't. It doesn't.
I don't think this is convincing, or does it matter? The United States of America didn't exist for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, but we won. The difference is we won. That's the key thing. Is you're arguing for like a group that's never won this independence from any of these countries.
All right, so I think what we can do is we can separate two things, right? We can talk about modern history and the nation state of Israel and Palestine, and then we can go into historical, biblical, and theological arguments about whose land is it and whatever. Let's just go with modern, right? The way you create a state, like I said earlier, one of three ways: conquer, buy, or diplomacy. If you didn't do those three things, one of those three things, you don't have a country. So what we are arguing now is the very first ever state of Palestine, which is what some people want and some people don't. Right? So they have one of three ways to do it. They can conquer it. They can conquer Israel, create Palestine. I don't think they're going to win. Right? They can do another thing. They can buy it. Right? Israel could sell it. Don't think that's going to happen either. Right? Or diplomacy. Their way of doing diplomacy is to start a war, then hide behind their people and hope that the international community just goes, hey, leave them alone and give them a state. And I don't think that's a good way to do statehood.
They kind of did, though. That's why the international community is supporting a state.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. If it works, I don't think it's a good precedent to set.
Well, they only have to do it once.
Well, no, because if they do it, other states will do it. Other people will do it. They'll be like, all I have to do is kill a bunch of Jews, hide behind my own people, give it a few years, and then I get my own country.
Germany, hey, it worked for Germany.
Let's go ahead and move on because I know we are on limited time with some of you. Evan Lords also says, under the Roman and Eastern Roman Empire, the region of Palestine was administered by the province of Syria. It has always been significant. Misfit win.
Okay. Yes. Again, just because things have been different in the past doesn't mean they have to always be the same as they were in the past.
You don't like Urbo
in perpetuity in the future. We can imagine.
Well, wait, I guess you didn't answer this earlier. Then you don't believe in Urbo then, and it's okay for Russia to take over Ukraine.
Hold on. What are you talking about?
Well, international rules-based order. Well, if you want a new state established that goes against international rules-based order, which wants to keep all the states the same, then you're against Urbo, which is something I've heard you defend in regards to like Ukraine and other states that are in.
I don't think that Russia is justified in taking Ukraine. No.
Yeah, but
you think that
Palestine doesn't mean that I support that in every instance that there is ever imaginable justification for one country to be established that doesn't currently exist.
But
These
you're
are
being
two separate
selective.
So you don't believe in Urbo.
Okay,
so you either do believe in it or you don't.
That's not true. I can support it in certain cases and not support it in other cases, depending on what the rules are and how they go about it. I do not think that we should freeze time, right? No, hold on. I don't think we should freeze time right now and solidify the borders, and no borders can ever change. No countries can ever change in any way. That's a silly thing.
Wick, let me ask you a question.
Right?
All right,
let me finish my statement, and then you can ask my question. But let me finish my thought here.
Go ahead.
My whole point is we can imagine a better world, and the only question I have is what we imagine and what we advocate for better than what we have now.
Wick.
And I think that having a Palestinian state, again, over time, not tomorrow, would be a better state of the world than we have today.
Wick, if
you don't believe in Urbo, okay, that's what, because
Wick,
that's the antithesis to what Urbo is.
If the current lines that have been drawn that Russia has taken over from Ukraine, right, were agreed upon by the international community, that because Russia created this conflict and created this chaos, I think it's a good idea if we just give them that land and make Ukraine smaller. Would you agree with that?
If part of the statehood agreement for Palestine was, hey,
I didn't say Palestine, I said Russia.
Listen, I know, but listen, if Palestine, when they did October 7th, actually won and took over a bunch of Israel, and then the international community said, not only will you give you a state, we'll let you keep the land you stole in this war. Yeah, I think that'd be ridiculous, but that's not what's happening. So
okay, so but what I'm saying is, if you agree with that, you agree with the principle that if they take a different strategy of starting a war, coming back and getting sympathy from the international community until they get a statehood, it's not the same thing. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but it's very similar.
That they started a war, which
did.
is technically true insofar as they started the greater conflict on October 7th.
No, they started a war. Like,
exactly. Sure.
War.
Well, no, but the point is that like we're arguing that the conditions that led to stuff like that is the Israeli.
What if Putin argues the conditions of Ukraine?
Yeah,
aligning
he could
with
say
NATO?
that, but he'd be wrong insofar as
maybe the
his
Palestinians are wrong.
But I think the Palestinians aren't wrong. Well, I'm not even saying the Palestinians are the ones arguing this. Obviously, they feel justified in what they're doing. I'm saying it's pretty evident that stuff like this is inevitable, even if it's not good. When you have the way Israel is. What?
It's interpretation of why war. You're arguing that Palestine started a war, correct?
I would say that Russia doing what Russia's doing now would be more justified not justified,
That's
but
your
more
opinion.
understandable if Ukraine
No,
was
let's-
doing what Israel is doing to Palestine and to Russia.
Let's get rid of subjective and let's
Finish
go
your thoughts, and then
let's
we're moving on.
No more subjective. Objective truth, right? Objective truth.
Okay.
Russia invaded Ukraine. Objective truth. Yes.
Yes.
Right? Palestine started a war. Objective truth. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Those two things are true.
Okay.
Right? If the outcome is you get either more land or your own country, right? The goal of starting the war is succeeded, right? Yes. So I'm not saying it's a one-to-one comparison. I'm saying if this happens and Palestine gets their own state, then they won. They started a war and they got their own state.
Hamas's purpose in starting that war wasn't to get their own state. It was to kill Jews. We understand that, right? It wasn't to get Jews. They don't give a shit. Let's be clear. Hamas doesn't give a shit about Palestinians.
We agree. Okay, let's move on.
They just wanted to wipe Israel off the map.
I agree with you.
That's what they wanted to do.
Evan Lord says the region was going to be its own province under an Arabian province, western coast of the Arabian Peninsula, but wars with Persia stopped that plan.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about the historical things. I don't think that we want to dive any more into this history.
Okay. Kokomo sends out 5 Mater memberships. Congratulations to lucky lottery winners. Tom says, so what you're saying is every time they say, give me more, and when they break peace, it's just, oops, I did it again because they're toxic. And so that's
Britney Spears!
Britney Spears! See, I didn't know I had to come prepared knowing about Britney Spears to the.
I am gonna find that clip of me saying Britney Spears, and that's going viral.
I think if Israel saw the video of Britney Spears dancing with knives and then blew up her house, I would disagree with that decision.
Okay. Evan Lord says the Romans, and we're back to the historical stuff, so I'll at least read them, and then you guys can pin it because Evan is hanging backstage. The Romans and Greeks called it Palestine because of the Philistine Greek colony that was established before the Hebrews established their kingdom.
From the Aegean Peninsula.
And Hadrian renamed the region officially after putting down the Great Jewish Revolt. Due to that revolt, all the client rulers lost their autonomy privilege.
Fair enough.
Tom saying left day 1. Let's pause for a land acknowledgement. Left next day. Israel has no claim to the land that was theirs for centuries until the 2nd century.
See, Tom, I gotta say, you can't call me out on that one because I think both of those things are stupid. So.
You know what? Hey, can we actually? I actually want to get your thoughts on this, Whick and Soy. Do you think that there is any validity to the argument of the people that lived there like the Native American argument, right? Like it's their land because you can trace it historically, theologically, and archaeologically back to the Jews.
I don't really give much track to that kind of argument.
So you just
acknowledgments, indigenous things. It's not a thing that I think
once it's in the past enough, like it becomes completely untenable to try to rectify and redraw borders. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to know. We'll move on. Okay.
Misfit's starting to get tipsy. Tom says, "Come on, you losers. Gonna let me do this by myself." Yes, and congratulations, chat. You did hit the goal. Let's keep it going. Hit the second one. Tom,
I started to get tipsy 45 minutes ago.
Oh my god. Well, now you're actually starting to slur.
Wait, yeah, I was gonna. Speaking of slurs, were the Arabian slurs, was that before or after the alcohol, or was that just something that normally happens?
No, that happens sober.
Okay, that's what I figured.
No, tomatoes had me sober before. I've done sober. I'm the same person.
It's gonna be one of those nights, huh?
So, oh my god. Tom says, looks like it's going to be on till the world ends. They just keep saying baby one more time. The question is it trouble for me or do I run away? That's a lot of song dropping there.
That's way more Britney Spears than I think is healthy.
I wonder
is fucking Britney going to release a song called Free Palestine or something?
Probably like Googled.
Am I the only one that liked her knife dancing videos? I thought they were cool. I was like, I would also dance.
I thought it was
in the kitchen.
I jerk off of those. We're good.
Well, all right.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Brick says, why should I pay for peace in another man's house, Israel/Palestine, when there isn't peace in my own house, America? SCOTUS says government has no duty to protect citizens. Overturned Terry v. Ohio.
Confederate flag in
OTVO.
profile picture. Opinion discarded.
So,
Sorry, not your
what-
territory. Go away, traitor.
Hold on.
That is
Important-
the battle.
important
That is the
distinction.
battle flag
peace
of
in
Northern
America.
Virginia. All right, that is not
Like
the
we
Confederate.
have heightened let's just be clear about this. We have heightened rhetoric and heightened tensions in America, right? But to say that we don't have peace in America is a silly thing to say. We generally are a pretty peaceful nation.
Side note: that's the Robert E. Lee Confederate flag, where he stood by free slaves and fought for their freedom.
Robert E. Lee
Fair.
fought for slaves' freedom.
Yeah, you don't know that?
I didn't. How did
He
you do that?
He fought with freedmen for what they believed was their right to autonomy in the South.
Was it after the Civil War?
No, it was during the Civil War. Look
Robert
it
E.
up.
Lee
Look up
fought
look up the
for-
battle. Look at the Battle of Northern Virginia. The battle flag of Northern Virginia is the thing that you keep calling the Confederate flag. It's not.
Okay.
After this, look it up.
I'll look it up right now. No time.
Misfit's getting cantankerous. Tom says material condition arguments only hold up if you pretend history didn't happen. He also says, I think I've heard similar arguments. Just do exactly what we want and we'll stop looting, burning cars and buildings, blocking people from getting
That's a
to
good
work
point.
in hospitals because democracy.
How much does this dude donate to talk?
I like
I mean,
Tom.
listen, he needs to
Tom-
keep donating.
Tom
That
joined-
was
Tom
the-
actually-
Always okay for people to
Well,
get
hold on,
Throw another
Tom-
10 in the chat.
Tom joined the panel actually the other night, and it was quite.
He's making a lot of sense, this Tom guy.
I like him.
Anson sends a big 10 just to say "fuck the Crucible." He did that on purpose just to make me say it.
Andrew
Can I
Andrew
just say-
Wilson is a
Can I just say how big of a
Misfit!
We're not allowed to say that on stream.
I
Don't be
forgot.
drunk.
I forgot. My bad.
Well, luckily, I was talking over him, so they couldn't
That was
hear
only
my-
one.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
I think-
hopefully that. Yeah,
hopefully-
my bad.
But just-
I realized that after.
But just real quick, and I won't use any slurs. Yeah, Andrew Wilson, Rob Knorr are the biggest snowflakes that I've ever seen. To imagine getting so mad that you spurg out because someone laughed at you because you were debating poorly, right? Frankly, what a bunch of cowards and pussies. That's all I
Well,
gotta
he
say.
said pussy.
Yeah, but that's
Pussy's
not
okay.
Allowable
You couldn't have
slur.
done it. You had to wait till you had to do it when I walk away, didn't you? God damn.
Speaking of pussies, right?
God damn. No, Rick is right.
I will
like
go
the
to
hepatitis.
war. I will go
And
to
some people
war
get
with
free
Andrew
sand
Wilson
out of
over
vaginas.
Sarah.
It's my kind of opinion.
Aw.
And trust me, he don't want that smoke. I've already beat him in a debate. He won one. We've had 3. He won 1.
I'll set that debate up. Oh my god.
We'll actually have a debate about whether
The
or not he
debate?
was right about
Debate on who won
Sarah.
the debate. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh Lord, you guys, I'm gonna blush. Stop it. Kokomo sends the big 10 just to say smile. Yes, you all made me smile by hitting the goal. Thank you so kindly. One more, and we're bringing up our panel. Tom says if you put your ears to the ground and listen carefully, you can hear a horse approaching.
I don't know how many
Yeah.
years I got left. but-
If you put a seashell to your ear, you can hear Andrew Wilson being a gay.
Oh my god.
Being a gay. He really tried on that one. Real quick, I did look it up, Misfit. I mean, like, I'm not sure where you're finding that he fought. I'm sure they had some freedmen, but he was fighting for the Confederacy. So
He
the
was
idea
fighting
that
for no. So
like, what were they fighting for? You know, like to maintain
look up
slavery.
his letters were that he abhorred slavery and that he was against slavery, and he fought next to freed men, but they had
And he was fighting to preserve it. So like he didn't really have a very strong conviction to stop fighting for the Confederacy.
He actually did
dude,
free.
like-
Hold on, he did free his slaves, and before the war,
freed his slaves.
was
Oh,
against-
that's how
he was against
magnanimous
it.
of him.
However, he did say he was like, no, I'm going to fight for my region. You know, so he was
That's
tied
what it-
into it.
that's
And
what it was.
I
and
hate
be
to do
fair
it,
to
but
what
I gotta
Soybeel's
preserve
saying,
slavery,
to-
guys.
to-
I don't love it,
fair
but
what
you know, my
Soybeel's
nation
saying.
calls. You
His
know,
region
like-
did back the slavery. Like, it's not like he was like, yeah, all the people are going to be free down here. He was like, no, I'm going to save my state.
Are you ready to
I
meet
support
your
the freedom
panel?
of states to decide whether or not people should be slaves.
It
okay?
was Robert E. Lee was very it was nuanced, right? Where he was like I personally don't like slavery. I'm going to fight for my state, my
Listen,
land.
I love Germany. I don't know about this whole Jew thing, but look, I'm gonna fight for the
I'm going to
Wehrmacht.
fight
Okay?
for the I mean, yeah, I kind of. Yo.
All right, let's get
Hitler
our
went
panel.
a little too far in a few places, but I love my nation regardless. Okay,
Gentlemen, are you ready? The panel's waiting patiently
not
backstage.
saying
Oh
I
my
like
God,
Hitler.
who else is drinking? Is everybody drinking? Why am I the only one that doesn't have?
I'm getting hammered.
I don't know. That's my
Oh my
question.
God. Are you gonna? I'm gonna have to call you again. Are you alive? All right, let's bring our panel up, gentlemen. Here we go.
I don't know.
All right, let me reset. I think Misfit's over there getting cantankerous. I love it. Just so you know, if you're watching over on YouTube Tomato side, the gauntlet is officially open, and I will be sending you over there in approximately 2 minutes. I will drop the direct link, so you can just head over now, or you can catch the raid. All right, Clay, you were hanging backstage first in line. If you'd like to go ahead and ask your question or throw in a thought.
Sure. Yeah,
let's turn your
great to
mic
see you
down.
guys.
Hold on.
That's loud.
That was very loud. I got you on my side. Now start going.
Check.
You're good
now.
All right. So for me, it's pretty simple. My tax dollars are for my people. This is a foreign nation. It seems like every time we get involved with foreign nations, as of recent, it just doesn't go well. The people in those foreign nations either despise us or eventually just stab us in the back.
Clay, do you think we should fund SNAP?
Do I think we should fund SNAP? I believe we should support our own people.
Okay. So you support like certain welfare programs then?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you think that we get what do you think America gets from its relationship with Israel?
$1.1 billion on average over 10 years.
That's it, really?
Yeah, well, per year.
But we get a lot of technology. We get a lot of advancements. So obviously us being involved in foreign countries does give America benefits. Not all the time, but you can imagine situations where
this is a straw man. This is straw man. My tax dollars going to defend a foreign nation in civil wars. Essentially, this is a civil war. You're talking about Palestine as a state.
Clay, do you agree? Okay, so they're in the F-35 program, right? They have developed a new version of the F-35. They developed a new version of the F-16. We've seen them use this in real world. We've tailored some of our aircraft now based off their real world experience. We have joint missile defense programs with them. They're building better here now. Their Golden Dome is going to be based partially on the Iron Dome. You're saying we don't want our tax dollars to fit another country. These are all benefits that we're getting because we've seen these technologies in action. That's an incalculable amount of money that we've saved in the long run. So when you say we're not getting anything, we're absolutely getting something out of this.
Can I jump in really quick, Clay? Would you say that if we were in a relationship with another country that was in a civil war and we were to show a benefit, would you agree that that was a good thing?
Yes, that would be.
That's kind of what we're arguing
I think that's what we're arguing. I think that if you do the research,
if it's strictly business, that's fine. But I'm not intent to go defend somebody else's ideals. So the First Amendment is of the greatest value to me because we all get to believe what we want to believe. And so when we're talking about foreign nations, we're actually talking about people who don't believe that very thing. We're actually, especially when we're talking about Israel and Palestine, we're talking about nations that literally go to war over their own beliefs. They go to war with each other.
Clay, me and you probably don't believe even close to 50% of the same stuff, but I'm still going to support
your
right to.
Yeah, we don't go to war. Right.
Yeah,
They-
but I'm
we
saying that
solve
I
our
would support the
differences.
government, supporting you in the same way that I would support the government getting kickbacks and benefits from supporting other
Yeah, we
countries. Like
solved our
America very
differences.
rarely gives out aid to any country without some sort of, expectation of something in return.
Why
That's why
should
we
our
have any of
aid-
those programs.
Hold on.
Why-
Don't go ahead.
Why should our aid be firearms and missiles to a foreign nation to fight their own people?
That's not what it is. What? All right, Clay, are you a Christian?
Most people would identify me as a Christian. I don't say that,
Okay.
but yes.
So, if you want to look at it from a purely monetary standpoint, we have a relationship with Israel because we are the benefactor. We're actually the benefactor in most of our relationships with any other foreign, policy. There's very few, like Canada. We are not the benefactor of our relationship with Canada. Canada basically we
Those
fund
silly
Canada.
Canadians.
Right.
Okay.
But with Israel, we actually have, like I said, we have IT, we have medical, we have military intelligence, we have a $1.1 billion average per year over the past 10 years surplus for our foreign aid to direct spending and other, benefits. So that right there is your logical argument. Your theological argument would be that we support Israel because of the land that they are sitting on, which is the land that Jesus walked on. So I think that there is a dual reason to support Israel, and one without the other doesn't make sense. And if you don't have either, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, don't you
If
support in the death cult mentality that when the rapture comes, the Jews have to be in Israel? Because otherwise,
I'm
yeah,
not an eschatologist. I don't believe in the rapture per se.
No,
Like
you're
so, I
barking
don't.
up
I
the
don't.
wrong tree on that one.
Yeah.
And
so-
allow me to interrupt, Clay, right before you go. I am officially shutting down on the tomato side, and we are moving over to the gauntlet. I've dropped the link into the live chat. Either go ahead and directly click over, or you can catch the raid. Otherwise, we'll see you there.
But to wrap it up, because I'm going to take a piss real quick.
Can I
To
ask
wrap